Chapter 1150. Wuliang, I'm not joking. I really feel that I'm too lousy. I'm affecting you, don't talk nonsense. I'm not in the mood, and I don't have the desire. No matter how lousy you are, you're still my wife. Even if you're an ordinary person, I won't despise you. I used to be flirtatious, but I'm past that age. Don't say such things again. I know what you're worried about. At worst, we'll cultivate quietly in the sect for a while. If there's a mission, you can come to my mind world or wait for me here. When the 100,000 years are up, we'll return to ancient chaos and never come back. Chen Wuliang said. Are you serious? Of course. Before I came here, I was indeed very ambitious. But now that I'm here, I'm just a nobody. If we came here when we were Zenith Heaven Golden Celestials, or when we just became Primordial Supremes, perhaps the situation would be better, but not by much. I can't help but be impressed. In this place, let alone me, even if Tianci came, he would at most be a first-rate genius. It's hard to be a top-notch genius. In the 10 galaxies of ancient chaos, he was second only to Yi Lan and the Shao clan's patriarch. However, after coming here, he couldn't even reach the middle level first. He was too old. He had lived for tens of millions of years, but he was only a Tao-severing perfected immortal, and he had a cultivation partner. For the cultivators of the great 1,000 worlds of the immortal emperors, this was too inferior. They should have found a mountain to quietly enjoy life and retire. However, in order to seek protection, Chen Wuliang had to enter a third-rate school. Even so, he was barely qualified. Second, it was fine that he was old, but his combat strength was only mediocre in the same realm. Combining these 2 points, although Chen Wuliang didn't want to admit it, he knew that his aptitude was indeed very ordinary in the great world of CND. Of course, Chen Wuliang also knew that the main reason was the restriction of ancient chaos. Now that there was no restriction of ancient chaos's heavenly Tao, he could certainly improve quickly. However, it was too late. Being a Tao-severing cultivator meant that he had missed the best time to shape his Tao, which was like missing the best age to learn. His Tao had taken shape. No matter how much he improved, it was difficult to change the basic embryonic form. I wonder how Hao is now. Hearing Chen Wuliang mention Chen Hao, Han Mei's expression became a little gloomy. Don't worry, old brother Yi has placed all of his hopes on Tianci. Even he prays for Hao day and night. Nothing will happen to him. I only hope that he can successfully undergo nirvana and return to vast universe galaxy through the call of faith. At that time, my wish can only be fulfilled by Tianci. No matter what, we have to get him here as soon as possible, Chen Wuliang said. The 2 of them didn't know that Chen Hao had returned to ancient chaos not long after they left. They also didn't know that Shui Mei had stepped into the Milky Way tunnel leading to the great world of CND in order to find them. At the same time, what they did not know was that the unification of the ancient chaos great 1,000 world and the removal of the barriers between the 10 galaxies had caused a fundamental change in the ancient chaos great 1,000 world. Heaven Tao, spacetime. That was when Shui Mei entered the Starry River Tunnel, and Chen Hao in proud heaven entered the Your Wilds realm, and the Kiliacosm of worlds began to tremble. Since then, the space-time law of the ancient chaos great 1,000 world and the great world of CND had become completely unified. They were completely equal. In the great 1,000 world, it was basically impossible for the space-time law to be completely equal. However, the ancient chaos great 1,000 world and the great world of CND had become completely equal. What was going on? Bang, 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 bang. Chen Hao's body exploded and blood splashed. His internal organs, meridians, and dantian were severely cracked. His skin and flesh were torn open. Chen Hao's mind, on the other hand, was almost completely invaded and occupied by the will of the true immortal king. Only a tiny bit of his remaining consciousness was still crazily chanting the profound meaning of the Buddhist scriptures that Chen Hao himself had comprehended. The nurse was so nervous that her face was pale and cold sweat dripped down her back. However, at this moment, there was nothing she could do to help. This was the battle between Chen Hao's soul imprint and the will of the gods and true immortals. They were all fighting in the deepest part of the Soul Palace and were completely intertwined. Although the little nurse was the reincarnation of the immortal emperor, due to the restrictions of her realm and her awakened abilities, she was temporarily unable to help Chen Hao. Besides, Chen Hao had told her not to do anything. Chen Hao, come back, come back. All of you, come back. I'm in danger. The immortal king's will is invading. However, when she sensed that Chen Hao's mental world was cracking more and more, and that Chen Hao's physical body was about to collapse, the young nurse finally couldn't hold it in any longer. She used her consciousness to activate her artificial intelligence and sent out an urgent cry for help. Little Hui, I'm already rushing over as fast as I can. Second Life replied. Little beauty, do I need you to tell me that? By the time I get back to you, it'll be too late. Third Life said. F***ck, what bullsh** T Immortal King's divine will. I'll devour it in a matter of minutes. Just you wait. Don't panic, I've already killed 2 immortal kings, although they shouldn't be immortal kings. Fourth Life said arrogantly. The Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree's most powerful ability was its devouring ability. Its innate ability was to condense thousands of Taos. No matter how strong the pressure was, it would be useless against it. It was nothing more than Chen Hao's original body's comprehension of the laws of the heavenly Tao that limited his ability to devour the pressure of the laws of the heavenly Tao. I'll be there soon. Don't worry, little girl. How dare you touch my handsome brother? You're asking for it. Don't worry, as soon as I'm here, my handsome brother's body will recover immediately. As for the rest, there's Tao manifestation and spiritual fountain. This was the reply of the freakish Fifth Life's Tree of Life. Little Hui, don't worry, I'll be there soon. With my endless energy, I'll grind the immortal kings to death. Don't worry. Sixth Life's Spiritual Fountain replied. Okay. Hurry up, hurry up. Lu Hui was slightly surprised, but she soon understood. Although Chen Hao's original body had been separated from his fifth life and formed a separate consciousness, they had been separated after they had truly merged. The connection between the origins could no longer be severed. Most likely, they had sensed Chen Hao's danger the moment he was in danger and had rushed over. Bang, 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 creak, creak, rumble, the terrifying explosions in his body and mind intensified, and Chen Hao's situation became more and more dangerous. Original body, Little Hui, I'm here. Less than an hour later, the second anima pierced through the air. As it flew through the air, it let out a roar. Boundless power of faith condensed into the Milky Way of the 9 heavens, which poured down toward Chen Hao, who no longer resembled a human. Scram! Put it away from me. Merry Christmas, brothers and sisters. Chapter 1151. But at that moment, Second Life and Nurse Lu Hui were both stunned to see that Chen Hao, who was on the verge of collapse, suddenly let out an unquestionable curse. At the same time, Second Life suddenly felt his mind being controlled by the main body. He couldn't go against the main body's decision. In an instant, an endless amount of faith power poured back into his mind, causing him to freeze in place. Chen Hao, Nurse Lu Hui trembled as she called out. What's the rush? The obsession of a true immortal king isn't fake, but it's just a consciousness that hasn't given birth to sentience. After countless years, it's weakened by a lot. I'm just completely immersing myself in it, trying to comprehend it and see if I can get any useful information. You? Hearing Chen Hao's words, Nurse Lu Hui opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She suddenly felt hurt. She was scared half to death, and her little heart was about to shatter. She had waited so long for reinforcements, but this guy actually said such words. It was really too shameless. Second Life was so depressed that he wanted to bang his head against the wall and die. F***ck, he'd finally found a chance to show off in front of Lu Hui, but this shameless main body had done it on purpose. How could he not be depressed? F***ck. Shameless. You made us worry for nothing. Handsome main body, you hello. I didn't want to swear. You're so infuriating. Next came the 4 doppelgangers, each more depressed than the last. The abnormal tree of life even said hello. However, the 5 doppelgangers were shocked deep in their hearts. All this time, when they existed as separate consciousnesses, they felt that their unique talents and strengths were not inferior to the main bodies. In fact, they were even stronger. However, under the control of the main body could split and merge whenever he wanted. If he wanted to cut off their comprehension of the laws of divine ability, he would cut them off. If the main body was a flower, they couldn't even be considered green leaves. The tree of life, the Tao manifestation, immortal fruit tree, and the spiritual spring water sea didn't really matter. After all, they weren't humans, and didn't have any unique experiences after they were born. At most, they just felt that they were stronger. However, the second and third animus had a lot of complaints. The second life was the little nurse Lu Hui, Lu Qian, and the women who gave birth to 2 daughters for him. Especially the most beloved Lu Hui and Lu Qian, they were robbed by this sovereign. As for the others, they were sent to the cold palace by this Chen Hao. How could he be happy? When the third life of spiritual intelligence was born and independent consciousness appeared, the first woman he recognized was Nguyen Tan Lan. She was also the only woman he had obtained. However, when his original body left the boundless chaos world, he did not even say a word to her. No matter why Nguyen Tan Lan was with him, she was still his first woman. How could he treat her like this? Moreover, he had no intention of returning to the chaotic Great Thousand World. He was also unhappy. It had to be said that the second anima and the third anima had rushed over as quickly as they could with the intention of rebelling. Saving the original body was a given, but taking advantage of the fact that the original body was heavily injured to take over the position of the leader in one fell swoop was even more important. As for letting his original body collapse, they had never thought of it. Even if he had an independent consciousness, he was still connected to the origin. No matter what, he was still their own. How could they let themselves die? Most importantly, if his original body died, their strength would be greatly reduced. This was unacceptable no matter what, all of you, Scram. In the future, don't come back without my call. Do you think you can escape my detection with that little trick of yours? If you have the ability, then become really strong and I will submit to you. Chen Hao didn't care about the 5 clones' gloominess in the slightest. He directly gave the order, and the 5 clones were so angry that they vomited blood and left. The little nurse Lu Hui pouted in Chen Hao's spiritual world. She was obviously very angry. Little Hui, I didn't mean to make you worry, but I really didn't have time to tell you. After all, this is the divine thought of a true immortal king, isn't it? Actually, as long as you carefully sense this strand of my divine thought, you should understand that I will be fine. The divine thought's attack is an attack on the origin of the soul. As long as my consciousness is not destroyed, then my physical body and spiritual world will not collapse no matter how serious the injuries are, right? I don't know. Alright, I can understand. A girl in love will have her IQ drop by 99%. This time we are even. You promised me last time, but you went back on your word. What? You were the one who thought wrongly. I wanted to bite you. The little nurse's pretty face immediately turned red as she quibbled. Last time, for her cousin Lu Qian, she had promised Chen Hao to bite him. However, after seeing Lu Qian's bold and powerful performance and Chen Hao's demand for payment, she could not do it no matter what. Therefore, she really did bite Chen Hao a few times. Let's call it even. Seeing that Chun Hao was silent, the little nurse hurriedly added. That's more like it. Little Hui, let me ask you something. Did you feel anything when you saw the divine thought of this monk? What did you feel? For example, you felt very familiar, like you knew him. Nope. The divine thought of an ancient true immortal king, and it's from your chaotic universe. How would I know him? Oh, I know. Do you think he is related to Earth? Lu Hui suddenly thought of something. By now, Lu Hui already knew that she was basically the reincarnation of an immortal emperor. Moreover, Chun Hao had specifically asked him about the illusion that had appeared when the two of them had truly connected their souls the last time. However, Lu Hui could not answer. She had not awakened any memories of Earth, the Moon, or even the Sky River sector. What she had awakened was only the laws of inheritance that came naturally as her cultivation base and strength increased. Smart, but I really didn't feel anything. Chun Hao, do you really think I'm related to Earth? I should be the reincarnation of an immortal emperor from the Sky River sector. How could I be related to Earth? Maybe the illusion that appeared last time came from your subconscious. Impossible. It must be yours. Although I don't know what's going on, I feel that the ancient chaos boundless world, the chaotic boundless world, and even your Milky Way galaxy, and even the immortal emperor's boundless world that we're about to go to might be related to Earth. Why? The outline of the great Tao and the Buddhist scriptures. Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. One day, all the mysteries will be solved. I'll start refining. This monk, I've released his soul, but other than the divine thought's obsession, there's not a single bit of extra information. After Chun Hao finished speaking, the remaining wisp of consciousness suddenly began to grow stronger. Soon, it went from being passive to being active, and was immersed in devouring and refining the divine thought. Merry Christmas, today's update. Chapter 1152. Along the way, Chun Hao comprehended and cultivated. As the Tao mark illusions he encountered grew stronger and stronger, the number of God intents increased. This made Chun Hao feel that there must be some kind of connection between the ancient chaos boundless universe and Earth. Unfortunately, the second level of a true immortal king's God intents was already the highest realm. Moreover, Chun Hao had never encountered a God intent that had given birth to sentience. However, as Chun Hao continued to go deeper, he gradually gained a vague understanding of the Great War of the ancient times. The Tao mark illusions left behind by the ancient powerhouses and the God intents that were born allowed Chun Hao to see the shadows of the 9 great races. They seemed to be able to confirm the factions in Earth's ancient myths and legends. The stars moved and the flowers bloomed and withered. 500 years passed in the blink of an eye. Almost there, chi. When it was almost time for the agreement of 1,000 years, Chun Hao recalled his 5 clones. However, he still did not merge them and only absorbed them into the great world in his mind. 1,000 years, Si Xian and the 9 true immortals, who were far away from Chun Hao, did not continue to go deeper after breaking through the Tao mark illusions. What a freak! The distance he went in was at least 10 times greater than mine. How strong are the Tao mark illusions there? There must be a lot of God intents. During this time, Si Xian had the 9 true immortals carefully exploring the path. Coupled with her good luck, she was able to avoid the God intents in advance and did not encounter any real danger. However, during these 500 years, she still contacted Chun Hao several times. Through her personal computer, she roughly knew where Chun Hao was now. Forget it, I won't contact him. At this time, Si Xian wanted to contact Chun Hao and check his location, but she resisted in the end. Even she herself had discovered her own abnormality. She did not talk about love, nor did she talk about love, but why was her heart always on him? Was it because of his freakish talent and strength, or something else? Si Xian did not know. However, she knew one thing. Before meeting him, she had been looking forward to quickly growing up in the third life and quickly stepping into the ranks of true immortals. This was because her original body had no room for improvement. But ever since he met Chen Hao, the Sanskrit Great Tao, the 9 Lives profound technique, the 3 great immortal scriptures, many things that she could not learn from her master, Yilan, were presented before her. For a cultivator, this was like opening up a brand new path, giving her new passion and anticipation, as if she had been reborn. I've already lived for tens of millions of years. For tens of millions of years, whether it's my true self, the second anima, or the third anima, I've never felt this way before meeting him. But now he is just a little brat. Even his father calls me teacher Si Xian. The more Si Xian thought about it, the more confused she became. As the Buddha had said, a single thought of a person would have 84,000 worries. This was the realm of life. People were often troubled, no matter how big or small. If one could conquer their mind, one could become a Buddha immediately. 1. A day later, in the sky above Chen Hao, Si Xian, and the 9 true immortals, the space-time gate of Yilan's token arrived as scheduled. The 1,000-year experience in the ancient chaos wilderness was finally over. What surprised and puzzled Chen Hao, Si Xian, and the 9 true immortals was that the space-time gate that appeared this time seemed to be much more powerful than when they had entered. Whether it was the aura or the profound meaning of space-time it contained, they had all improved tremendously. There was no need to carefully sense it at all to clearly feel that the changes were too great. However, what they did not expect was that a series of even more shocking things were yet to come. Stepping out of the space-time gate, they did not return to the divine temple of the human race, but to a huge palace that was 10 times larger than the divine temple of the human race. This was one of the reasons. Secondly, the rich spiritual qi of heaven and earth and the heavenly Tao laws immediately shocked Chen Hao, Si Xian, and the 9 true immortals. Chen Shui and the rest of Ao Tian's group were released from the great world in Si Xian's mind. When they were released by Chen Hao and appeared one after another, they were also shocked speechless. Thirdly, and what shocked Chen Hao and the others the most was that Yilan, who was standing with a smile, had 9 extremely powerful cutting Tao true immortals by his side. Moreover, they were clearly not of the human race. "Greetings, Master." What made Chen Hao almost fall to the ground was that Yilan actually took the lead in saluting him with cupped fists. Immediately after, the 9 powerful true immortals from the various galaxies followed suit and saluted him. What the F***ck, not only was Chen Hao stunned, but Si Xian, the 9 true immortals who followed them, and Ao Tian and the rest of Ao Tian's group were all stunned. What was going on? Amidst the clouds, Yilan slowly explained all the changes in the ancient chaos great 1,000 worlds and the current situation. Chen Hao and the others felt as if they were in a dream. The ancient chaos great 1,000 worlds, which had been divided for hundreds of millions of years, was actually unified by Yilan so easily. The body and soul of the Shao clan's patriarch had been destroyed, but the Shao clan's patriarch's true identity turned out to be from the great world of Xiandi, and there was an even stronger existence behind him. Such a situation cast a shadow over the temporarily peaceful and prosperous ancient chaos great 1,000 world. After a long talk, Chen Hao and the others understood the current situation of the ancient chaos great 1,000 worlds and made adjustments to their previous decision. What made Chen Hao feel ridiculous was that he didn't know anything and was inexplicably pushed to the position of controller by Yilan. No matter how much Chen Hao objected, in the face of Yilan's determination and the insistence of the 9 true immortals, Chen Hao, who was only from the Daluo Golden Wonderland and was regarded as the reincarnation of an immortal emperor, could not shirk away. In the end, the 10 of them agreed to Yilan's plan of temporarily holding the position of controller. Everything in the ancient chaos great 1,000 worlds was still decided by Yilan and the 9 true immortals for the time being. After all, Chen Hao was still young, and his realm was only that of the Daluo Jinxian. It was impossible for him to be in charge of the entire ancient chaos great thousand worlds. However, Chun Hao, who had inexplicably become the principal of the #1 academy in the ancient chaos great thousand worlds, did not escape from his 1,000 years of Tao teaching in the vast universe great thousand world. Moreover, it was arranged to be held in the #1 academy in the ancient chaos great thousand worlds, and the 10 true immortals cast spells at the same time to condense spacetime laws. The 10 years of Tao teaching became 1,000 years of Tao teaching. Proud Heaven, Huyen Aobua, and the other original brothers and sisters had all become the top geniuses of the ancient chaos great thousand world. To be more precise, the Proud Heaven Association had over 10,000 people who had passed the selection of the top geniuses of the ancient chaos great thousand worlds to become students of the ancient chaos great thousand world. This time, in addition to the top geniuses of the ancient chaos great thousand worlds, Chun Hao's Tao teaching also included the peak late-stage Grand Mist Supremacy Realm experts and Tao severing true immortals of the 10 major galaxies. The scale of the Tao teaching had reached an unprecedented scale, and it was several times larger than the Tao teaching of 1,000 years ago that was limited to the vast universe great thousand world. First update: begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1153. Chun Hao was just a golden immortal of the great firmament, but he had the titles of Killing God Chun Hao, President of the Proud Heavens Association, Controller of the Ancient Chaos Great Thousand Realms, Principal of the Ancient Chaos Great Thousand Realms, Principal of the Ancient Chaos Great Thousand Realms due to Yilan's request, as well as for his own face and the future of the Ancient Chaos Universe. Chun Hao had no choice but to bring out all of his trump cards. His 5 avatars were all used. His true body preached the Tao, the great Tao's Buddhist chanting, the lotus flower blossoming, resounding through the heavens and earth. The second anima bloomed with a river of faith, covering the entire space. The third anima filled every corner with the enlightenment of the demonic realm. The fourth anima's Tao manifestation, immortal fruit tree, seemed to connect the 9 heavens and 10 earth. Its branches, leaves, and tentacles spread out endlessly, condensing and blooming the myriad heavenly Tao laws. The fifth anima emitted endless vitality, causing all things in the world to come back to life, old trees to sprout and old trees to bloom. Old cultivators once again bloomed with vitality. The sixth anima's spirit spring sea was like a vast ocean, providing boundless spiritual energy support to all the cultivators present. 10 years, under the 100 times faster spacetime laws, was equivalent to 1,000 years of preaching. Chun Hao could be said to have put in a lot of effort. His true body and his 5 avatars, apart from the second anima, were exhausted to the point of hovering between life and death. They had no choice but to stop countless times to recover themselves. There were simply too many cultivators and too many powerhouses. If Yilan and the 9 rulers hadn't arranged for other supplies, Chun Hao wouldn't have been able to last for long. The only exception was the second anima. The more the power of faith was released, the more vigorous it became, and the more powerful it became. Without a doubt, the heaven-defying strength that Killing God Chun Hao displayed had won over more and more believers in the process of preaching the Tao. The special nature of the power of faith was that the feedback it received was far greater than the release of the power of faith. After 10 years of teaching, with the help of Yilan and the masters of the 9 galaxies, Chun Hao condensed countless runes and Tao marks in the #1 Academy of Ancient Chaos, which was also the highest level of the Ancient Chaos Sacred Hall. It was the symbol of the first cultivation sacred ground after the unification of the Ancient Chaos Great Thousand Worlds, and also the highest sacred ground. Yilan and the other 8 rulers also integrated their own supreme Tao laws. But the true core was still Chun Hao's Daluo Jinxian's Tao marks. All runes, heaven and earth energy, as well as the mysteries of space-time and space and time, they all revolved around the Tao marks left behind by Chun Hao. This was something that even Yilan and the masters of the 9 galaxies did not expect. was the Tao's origin, the Tao's profound mysteries, the Tao's mysteries, SSSS mysteries, ants contains profound mysteries, and the origin Tao source the Taoist origin had already surpassed them. Especially the Tao mark pressure that Chen Hao condensed. It was different from the fish given to fish. Cultivators could only comprehend the Tao marks of their absolute arts to improve themselves. Chen Hao, on the other hand, taught him to fish. What Chen Hao condensed almost didn't contain any fixed divine ability laws. It was completely based on the great Tao outline that he had comprehended as a blueprint, fusing the most fundamental understanding of the heavenly Tao into it. To a cultivator, this was a fundamental benefit. It definitely wasn't as simple as comprehending a divine ability or supreme art. This was a fundamental difference. Chen Hao's terrifying performance completely dispelled the doubts of the rulers of the 9 galaxies. It also made them truly acknowledge the existence of the future ruler of the universe, the god of slaughter, Chen Hao. In the blink of an eye, another 10 years had passed. On this day, in the ancient Chaos Temple, Chen Hao, Chen Shui, and the other girls gathered in a circle, kneading a naked baby. This was Chen Hao's 7th anima. The 7th anima was different from the 2nd anima to the 6th anima. This was a true rebirth. But it was also different from Si Xian's absolute rebirth. This was because Chen Hao had completely sealed his memories in the 7th anima. As his realm increased, they would slowly awaken. Chen Hao pushed Long Ting's hand away and protected the 7th anima, who was still a baby. "Wives, you're harming a baby. Ah, little sister Ting, you dare to pinch my dick? Okay, let's stop messing around. Hao, what do you plan to do?" Chen Hao said, "What else can I do? I'll let him grow under your supervision. My memories are completely sealed in his soul origin. Only cultivation is his own business. As his realm increases, his memories will awaken a bit and he'll become the same realm as my true body. Won't this affect your strength after the fusion?" Hu Mainyang frowned. "The 9 lives' profound art is just a divine ability. Do you think I'll rely on it to reach the peak of the great Tao? Besides, it won't affect anything," Chen Hao said. Chen Shui thought for a moment and said, "Then let Teacher Si Xian look after us while we're in the 10-direction territory." The heavenly Tao law had undergone an astonishing change after the unification of the ancient chaos boundless world. According to Yilan, the ancient chaos boundless world only lacked in foundation and time compared to the great world of Xiandi. The supreme realm of the heavenly Tao law was not inferior to the great world of Xiandi. Similarly, the current 10-direction territory was not inferior to the great world of Xiandi. Give it to her? Chen Hao was slightly taken aback and immediately said, "Okay. It seems you're still worried. It's good to let her supervise for a while." Crash, at this moment, there was a fluctuation in space and Yilan and Si Xian appeared in front of everyone. "Speak of the devil. Don't give it to me. Master should supervise her. I'm not interested in supervising a little brat." What left Chen Hao speechless and the girls embarrassed was that Si Xian, who had just arrived, directly said such a thing. The corners of Yilan's mouth carried a trace of a smile as he directly said, "This old man will supervise. Hao, are you ready?" "Sort of." Chen Hao frowned slightly and looked at the girls with a trace of reluctance in his eyes. However, no matter how reluctant he was, he still had to leave eventually. The 10-direction territory had indeed become stronger and might not be inferior to the existence of the Hongmeng territory in the great world of Xiandi. However, Yilan still insisted that Chen Hao step into the great world of Xiandi as soon as possible. Firstly, Chen Wuliang, Han Mei, and Shui Mei had already entered. Yilan knew very well what they would encounter when they arrived there. However, he could not stop them. There were some things that they would only understand and feel at ease after experiencing it themselves. Secondly, the great world of Xiandi gathered countless geniuses from the great 1,000 domains. That was the place that suited Chen Hao. The sooner he entered, the more beneficial it would be for Chen Hao's growth. Chen Hao's strength in the Daluo Golden Wonderland was far from the limit. Yilan was sure that Chen Hao still had a lot of room for improvement in the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Under such circumstances, the 10-direction territory could never satisfy Chen Hao's needs. The path of a powerhouse could not be reached by being as lonely as snow in the river. One had to go to the sea and constantly move forward in the collision between powerhouses. Chapter 1154. Then let's go. Si Xian will send you into the galaxy tunnel. Chen Hao nodded. He was in the Daluo Golden Wonderland, so he couldn't enter the galaxy tunnel by himself. Once he stepped through the entrance of the 10 Directions domain, he would directly enter the 10 Directions domain. Therefore, he could only let the cultivators of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm into the galaxy tunnel. Si Xian only needed to take Chen Hao into her mind and let him out after entering the galaxy tunnel that led to the great world of Xiandi. Hao, don't worry, we will wait for you to come back. It's only been less than 100,000 years. Maybe when you come back, we won't even step out of the 10 Directions domain. Chen Shui, who was wearing a blue dress, said softly with a smile on her beautiful face. The girls also smiled at Chen Hao, but wait for me to come back. Let's go. Chen Hao couldn't bear to watch anymore. He didn't want the girls to be too tired. Would he be relieved if they sent him off with a strong smile? Therefore, Chen Hao didn't say anything else. He turned into a stream of light and stepped into the gate of time that Yilan had already opened. Si Xian followed closely behind. The girls only retracted their gazes when the gate of time disappeared. Their smiles were replaced by tears and reluctance. Break. Yilan didn't hesitate. The moment the gate of time closed, she suddenly attacked. The 10 tokens combined into one and released endless immortal light, completely erasing the aura of Chen Hao's imprint in the greater 1,000 primordial realms. Even the origin link between Chen Hao's 7th life and it was temporarily severed. Walking the Great Tao alone is destined to endure loneliness that ordinary people can't bear. You are all the hope of the primordial realms. For now, cutting off the aura of Chen Hao's imprint in the primordial realms was inevitable. However, Chen Hao and the girls didn't expect Yilan to act so decisively as soon as Chen Hao left. The void suddenly shook, and the masters of the 9 galaxies appeared in front of Yilan. Reincarnate. Yilan finally finished the rest of his sentence. At this moment, the ancient Chaos Ruler's token suddenly released a boundless profound aura under the combined efforts of Yilan and the 9 galaxy rulers. Beams of resplendent and profound immortal light directly sealed away the astonished women. Soon after, all the women fell into a daze. Endless profound runes flickered unceasingly. Yilan and the 9 controllers' beards and hair stood on end. They were all raised to the limit. They began to display the unparalleled might that only the controllers of ancient chaos had after unifying ancient chaos. It was just that the 10 of them had to work together to control it. Endless cycle of reincarnation. Yilan's idea was simple. He wanted the girls to grow together with Chen Hao's 7th anima. Thank you, Teacher Si Xian. Goodbye. After entering the Milky Way tunnel leading to the great world of Xiandi, Chen Hao cupped his fists and said to Si Xian when Si Xian released Chen Hao from the macro world in her mind. Goodbye? I didn't say I wouldn't go to the great world of Xiandi, Great Controller Chen. Si Xian smiled faintly and glared at Chen Hao, then looked at the endless Milky Way tunnel in front of her. You're going too? Of course I'm going. Ancient Chaos's heavenly laws have become much stronger, and Master said it's comparable to the great world of Xiandi. However, within the same realm, you know better than me the feeling of loneliness. If you want to improve even more, the only way is to enter the great world of Xiandi. Si Xian said. Chen Hao frowned slightly. Don't worry, I won't drag you down. You enter your Hongming domain, and I'll train myself. We won't affect each other, Xixian said. Chen Hao couldn't help but ask, Senior Yilan asked you to send me in. You didn't act on your own, did you? How is that possible? I've discussed it with Master, Xixian said hurriedly. You haven't lied before, have you, Teacher Xixian? Of course not. I've never lied. Are you suspecting me? That's right. It's precisely because you haven't lied before that your performance this time is too fake. I advise you to go back. It's still not too late. What are you talking about? Xixian's face immediately turned red. When you said you wanted to follow us to the great world of Xiandi, Senior Yilan didn't object. That's because you've indeed reached your limit in ancient chaos. There's no room for improvement. However, ancient chaos has been unified, and the heavenly Tao has changed. You still have a lot of room for improvement. Even if Senior Yilan wants you to go, it'll only be when your strength reaches the limit of your Hongming domain. Don't worry about me. You're the one who said that a general can't obey orders when he's outside. There's one more thing. Senior Yilan has already told me the basic situation of the great world of Xiandi. With your strength in the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm, you might be first-rate in the great world of Xiandi, but your life force. Do you really need to go now? Chen Hao, what do you mean? I've already decided. And I've already entered. I don't need you to care about me. Why are you poking your nose into other people's business? All right, do as you wish. Chen Hao shook his head and didn't say anything else. He sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. However, his heart couldn't calm down. It wasn't because of Xixian, but because of his departure in the end. Chen Hao still couldn't accomplish the same thing. Leaving behind the seventh anima gave the women a bit of mental comfort. However, Chen Hao was well aware that, because of the special nature of the 9 animus arcane art, his true self was the only thing that mattered to them. 100,000 years, Chen Hao murmured in his heart. The time he agreed to with Yilan was the time his father, mother, and Master Han Mei had agreed to. When his father and the others left for about 100,000 years, Yilan would rush over to pick them up in advance. 100,000 years was indeed nothing in the long life of a cultivator, but for the young Chen Hao, it was quite long. Moreover, Chen Hao knew that there was still a huge crisis in ancient chaos that might erupt in another few tens of thousands of years. But Yilan still proposed 100,000 years. Chen Hao knew that it came from Yilan's self-confidence. When Chen Hao returned to the ancient Chaos Great Thousand World from the ancient Chaos Great Desolation domain, what changed was not only the supreme heavenly Tao of ancient chaos, but also Yilan. It wasn't Yilan's strength. With Chen Hao's current realm, no matter how strong his perception was, the feeling Yilan gave him could only be described as unfathomable. Chen Hao couldn't tell whether his strength had increased or not, but Yilan gave him a feeling of being reborn. And Yilan also clearly told Chen Hao that the seal that had imprisoned him for hundreds of millions of years had been released. What did that mean? Yilan was previously imprisoned by a terrifying seal and was the #1 expert in ancient Chaos City who was on par with the Shao family's ancestor. Now that the seal was released, how strong would he be? Third update, begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1155. Xiao Hui, Hao, where is he going? He's going to the great world of Xiandi, a space stronger than the ancient chaos boundless universe. Mom, don't worry, he'll come back. He left the 7th life behind. With me around he'll be fine, I know. But when he comes back, will he really fuse? Probably. When he steps into the peak of the late Grand Mist Supremacy Realm, he'll probably fuse. Mom, don't think too much. This time, he asked the 2nd life to come back and accompany you and Dad, as well as them for 10 years. He's not a heartless person. After the fusion, this memory will always exist. Look, the planet he's fighting for our Sky River is the best proof. It's just that he's under too much pressure and doesn't have time for himself. Oh, on a planet in the ancient chaos boundless universe, Chern Hao's mother in the Skyriver sector and the little nurse, Lu Hui, sat on a sofa on the rooftop of a building. They stared at the endless void and talked softly. Lu Hui, the soul of all creation, had stayed in the ancient chaos boundless universe with the other girls under Yilan's suggestion. She was the reincarnation of the immortal emperor and the soul of all creation. Although it couldn't restrict her growth in Chern Hao's mind, it still affected her. Now that the ancient chaos boundless universe had become stronger, leaving the little nurse behind would allow Chern Hao to truly have no distractions. In fact, it was just temporarily letting go of everything. This time, Lu Hui didn't insist. However, she didn't show her face, nor did she stay with the other girls. Instead, she chose to stay with Chern Hao's parents in the Skyriver sector, as well as her family and friends. The Milky Way galaxy was her foundation. Although Nurse Lu Hui did not know what would happen after her awakening, she knew that one day, the silent space of the Milky Way sector would once again become a real great thousand world following her awakening. At that time, all living things would be revived, and the ancient powers that had disappeared would be revived. It would be the beginning of a new era for the great thousand world of the Milky Way. This was something that the young nurse was looking forward to. But no one knew that the nurse's expectation was that in the future, she would be fully awakened and be able to command the countless awakened mighty people in the heavenly river. She just wanted to become more important in Chern Hao's heart and become the real, first female lead. She wanted to become an indispensable existence and the strongest assistant to Chern Hao. Phew, Chern Hao heaved a long sigh. You don't have to do this, do you? Do I give you such a headache? What Chern Hao didn't expect was that Si Xian actually looked at him with a frown after hearing his sigh. You've overestimated your worth. Let me give you one last piece of advice. You should go back by yourself. Otherwise, Senior Yilan will also capture you back. Chern Hao said helplessly. Chern Hao had no way to deal with Si Xian and her third anima, Xiao Feng. Whether it was the weaker Xiao Feng or Si Xian, their statuses suppressed him to death. The fake identity of the limitless ancestor was his former master, but his real identity was the immortal legend that even his father called master. What could Chern Hao do? First, it was Xiao Feng, now it was Si Xian, not to mention anything else. Just the fact that Si Xian followed him unwisely at this time was enough to explain the problem. It was just that Si Xian didn't think so. That's impossible. First, I've already decided. Even if Master knows, he will agree with my choice. Second, it's impossible for Master to capture me in time, Si Xian said confidently. Senior Yilan's speed can't catch up with you? Chern Hao asked rhetorically. In the galaxy tunnel, as long as a cultivator chose a direction, their teleportation speed would be amazing, but it was the same for any cultivator. If Yilan came in, with his unfathomable strength, there would be no problem for him to catch up with them. What's more, he and Si Xian were completely at the mercy of the galaxy tunnel. They didn't use their own strength to speed up at all. Master can't care. By the time he realizes that I've left, we'll be almost at the great world of Xiandi. What do you mean? Chern Hao asked with a frown. There's no harm in telling you. Master and the Masters of the 9 Galaxies have already joined forces to cast a spell on your women when we entered the gate of time and space to go to the 10th direction territory. It will take at least half a year to complete. Cast a spell? Cast AF** King Reincarnation spell. What? Don't worry, Master and the Masters of the 9 Galaxies have joined forces to activate the Ancient Chaos Controller's token, which can control all lives in Ancient Chaos. Your departure will definitely have a great impact on them. The best solution is to let them enter the reincarnation cycle. Moreover, previously, because they wanted to catch up with your footsteps, their crazy cultivation and advancement were more or less a little extreme. It's good for them to be reincarnated once or several times. Moreover, they can grow together with your 7 lives, Xian said. Chen Hao frowned and pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, That's right. It seems that you're determined to go? Of course, then it's up to you. When the time comes, don't be ravaged and go back crying. You should worry about Shui Mei, Han Mei, and Wuliang. Although my life aura is old, I have no problem protecting myself in the same realm. The great world of Xiandi's rules are very strict. At most, those of a higher realm can look down on me, but they can't do anything to me. Moreover, I'm only in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Before I reach Cutting Dao, I'm still very malleable. What about them? They've all reached Cutting Dao, Xian said very calmly. Moreover, she had indeed spoken to the bottom of Chen Hao's heart. Without a doubt, this was what he was most worried about. Previously, he only knew that the great world of Xiandi was powerful, but now, after receiving the specific information about the great world of Xiandi from Yilan, Chen Hao knew that even his father, who dominated ancient chaos, would probably be bullied there and would have to swallow his anger. This was all Cutting Dao's fault. When we enter the great world of Xiandi, let's first find my parents and Master Han Mei. Chen Hao hesitated for a moment, then looked at Xian and said, Us. Xian was slightly taken aback. She wanted to say something, but Chen Hao immediately closed his eyes. A light flashed between his brows, and the 2nd to 6th onimus escaped from the great world in his mind. Xian glared at Chen Hao, then looked at the excited clone. In the end, she did not say anything, but the corners of her mouth could not help but curl into a faint, pleased smile. Hello, Master Xian. It's a very satisfying thing to have a great beauty like you by my side on this lonely journey. The Dao manifestation immortal fruit tree transformed into Chen Hao's original appearance. Dao laws surged around it, and the corners of its mouth curled into a smile as it ran in front of Xian. Beauty, didn't you just say that your life aura is old? Although I can't prevent your life aura from aging, I can make you as full of youthful vigor as a beautiful girl. Do you want it? The Tree of Life, which had also transformed into Chen Hao, ran in front of Xian and said, 4th update, begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1156. Are you serious? Xian asked with a hint of anticipation. After entering the great world of Xiandi, the life aura that had lived for tens of millions of years would undoubtedly have a huge impact on her potential. Although the Tree of Life could not change her age, if it could make her life aura as vigorous as a young person's, it would undoubtedly increase her potential. Although I like handsome men, I also like beautiful women. Why would I lie to? At this moment, 5 dazzling celestial lights suddenly shot out of Chen Hao's glabella and covered the heads of his 5 clones, causing the Tree of Life to stop talking abruptly. Scram at once. If you say another word, I'll seal you immediately. Main body, scram. Fine, I'll go. Chi. The 5 clones could feel the irresistible divine consciousness that was about to suck them back into the mind of the main body at any time. They turned into streaks of light and quickly flew in the direction of the Milky Way tunnel. Chen Hao, why are you doing this? The Tree of Life wants to help me. Xian, whose interest was piqued by the Tree of Life, said frankly. It wants to merge yin and yang with you. Are you going to do it or not? Chen Hao glared at Xian. Cough cough. Xian was suddenly choked by Chen Hao's words. Soon after, when Xian thought of something, her pretty face became even redder. Wasn't the Tree of Life's thoughts the same as Chen Hao's thoughts? Of course, this was very far-fetched. After all, the Tree of Life now had its own consciousness. Just like Xiaofeng, Xian could not decide Xiaofeng's thoughts. At least for now, it had nothing to do with her. After a moment of silence, Chen Hao felt that his words were a little too direct. After hesitating for a moment, he said, You can enter the great world in my mind. The origin energy of the tree of life is there. Perhaps it will be of some help to you, no need. It's not a big deal that I'm old. Anyway, I'm just going there to take a look. Si Xian said. Up to you. Chen Hao didn't say anything else. He directly severed all distracting thoughts, and his mind spread out, fusing into the ancient and profound aura of the stellar river tunnel. Previously, when he returned to ancient chaos from the Star River Tunnel with Edo Tai, Chen Hao used the ancient and mysterious aura of the Star River Tunnel to pass the time, but he could only understand the surface. Although Chen Hao's cultivation base was still in the Daluo Golden Wonderland, his comprehension of the space-time laws was no longer the same as before. This also made Chen Hao feel even more shocked by the ancient Starry Sky Road. However, Si Xian secretly stared at Chen Hao. She was annoyed in her heart. She was just saying those words out of anger. How could he not be reluctant at all? Would he die if he continued to be reluctant? He actually entered the state of enlightenment so quickly, Si Xian didn't know whether to describe Chen Hao as a genius, heartless, or inhumane. However, it was impossible for her to take the initiative to ask to enter again. Slowly calming her mind, Si Xian also entered the state of cultivation. Under the constantly changing space-time laws, Chen Hao and Si Xian didn't know how much time had passed. They were quietly comprehending and moving forward along with the transmission of the Stellar River Tunnel itself. A single man and a single woman's journey through the ancient Starry Sky Road. If it were one of the women, Chen Hao and Si Xian, except for the conversation at the beginning, did not say a word during the subsequent journey. Half a year, in the blink of an eye, the top palace of the ancient chaos world was filled with endless mysterious runes, immortal light lingered, Tao laws pervaded, and pure and majestic world energy filled the entire space, constantly merging into the bodies of Chen Shui, Hu Mainyang, and the other women. At this moment, the appearance of the women had been completely blurred, as if they had transformed into a mass of light, and as time passed, they became brighter and brighter. Finally, on the 8th month, Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Hu Mainyang, Long Ting, and the others turned into streaks of light one after another. They directly penetrated the barrier of the ancient Chaos Temple and merged into the world of the ancient Chaos Great Thousand World. Phew! We finally succeeded. Brother Yi, the Master's companions are really not simple. Fortunately, you specifically told us to prepare well, otherwise we would have to give up halfway. Yes, especially Chen Shui, Hu Mainyang, Helian Wuzi, and Long Ting, the energy they consume is really terrifying. I feel that any one of the four of them will be more terrifying than us when they grow up. Only Brother Yi should be stronger than them. The Masters of the 9 Galaxies looked a little dispirited, but there was a touch of surprise in their eyes as they spoke one after another. They will be stronger in the future, perhaps completely beyond our expectations. How the Master can even subdue the spirits of all beings reincarnated by the immortal Emperor, so how can his companions be simple? Even if they used to be very bad, you can see the current situation. Yilan, who was speaking, suddenly frowned slightly, and his expression changed slightly. Brother Yi, what's wrong? Everyone was slightly puzzled. This girl. Si Xian went with Hao. This kid is really. Back then, he was still stubborn. Now that he knows it's not the best time to go to the great world of Xiandi, he actually. It's been 8 months. Forget it, let her be. Yilan shook his head and said, Everyone, let's work together to activate the token and cut off the aura Si Xian left here. Chen Hao. Got it. It felt like 10 years had passed, but how much time had actually passed could not be measured by the changing spacetime laws. It was also at this moment that Si Xian took the lead to break the silence and shouted. Chen Hao slowly opened his eyes and responded directly. Me grabbing you? Or you entering my mind world? Chen Hao looked at Si Xian and said. Si Xian hesitated for a moment, then directly stretched out her jade-like hand to Chen Hao, but she did not approach Chen Hao. Chen Hao was slightly stunned, then suddenly floated to Si Xian's side and reached out to hold her hand. "You seem a little excited?" This handshake was the first intimate contact between the two. Whether it was Chen Hao or Si Xian, it was impossible to say that they did not feel anything. The legendary Si Xian, especially her influence in the vast universe galaxy and the temperament brought about by her tens of millions of years of heritage, had a fatal attraction to any man. Chen Hao had to admit this when he first saw Si Xian. Coupled with the matter of Xiaofeng, it was impossible for the two to be open and aboveboard. At this moment, when they shook hands, Chen Hao had to admit that the legendary Si Xian's hand was definitely the most beautiful hand among all the women. Moreover, it felt good to the touch, making Chen Hao feel a little electric shock. However, Chen Hao had experienced it before, so his control was much better. Si Xian, on the other hand, was much worse. She thought that she could remain calm, but when she held his hand, there was almost no suspense at all. Her delicate body trembled, and she suppressed the electric shock that came from having intimate contact with a man. She pretended to be calm, but her slightly trembling hands betrayed her completely. Chen Hao's shameless greeting made her face instantly turn red. Fifth update: seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1157. What are you talking about? I'm just not used to it. Si Xian glared at Chen Hao before turning her face away. Chen Hao smiled and did not continue to tease her. The Star River Tunnel could be opened from the inside to the outside. A supreme Hongmeng who had mastered some space Upanishad could open a gap. Although it could only be maintained for a moment, it was enough time for a cultivator to jump out of the Star River Tunnel. The speed of the automatic transmission in the Star River Tunnel did not affect the cultivator too much. However, if a cultivator broke through the tunnel's barrier and entered the chaotic space, even if it was just a moment, it could be 10 billion or 100 billion miles away in the chaotic space. Since Chen Hao and Si Xian were together, they naturally had to leave at the same time. Otherwise, after entering the chaotic space, they would have to spend a lot of time to meet up. This was the reason why Chen Hao and Si Xian were together. It was also the reason why Yilan had told them to step into the chaotic space when the Star River Tunnel suddenly widened. Sizzle, in the ancient and mysterious aura, the two of them held hands and gazed ahead as they moved forward quickly. Their Taoist robes fluttered in the wind, and their long hair fluttered in the wind. A man and a woman walking side by side. From afar, they looked like a pair of immortals. "We're here." Si Xian's aura suddenly soared. "Let me." Sizzle. The moment the Star River Tunnel suddenly widened, Chen Hao made his move. With a point of his finger, a crystal light that contained the space Upanishad penetrated the barrier of the Star River Tunnel. Buzz. Si Xian felt her hand tighten as she was pulled by Chen Hao into the barrier. Sizzle. The majestic and terrifying space Upanishad almost completely twisted their bodies at this moment. Before they could react, they were stuck close to each other and were wantonly stretched, twisted, and entangled. Fortunately, their bodies had reached the standard. Such twisting and changing could not hurt them at all. Especially for Chen Hao, he did not feel any pressure at all. The only feeling he had was a little bit of romance and the terror of the Star River Tunnel. Buzz. After passing through the space Upanishad barrier for a short time, the two of them appeared in the chaotic space. Si Xian stretched her body and separated from Chen Hao. What a powerful spacetime profound! Chen Hao was shocked. He released his soul perception, but he couldn't sense any trace of the Star River Tunnel's aura. I felt as if the laws of space and time had changed millions of times in that instant. It's truly miraculous. Just how strong must one's cultivation base be to be able to completely fuse the different laws of space and time together? Si Xian was also shocked. Chen Hao's lack of reaction to the charm, just now undoubtedly made her feel a little more at ease. Chun Hao frowned and said, "It's at least at the immortal emperor level. Different space-time laws are mixed together, forming a galaxy tunnel on the inside and a chaotic space on the outside. This chaotic space can't be a galaxy tunnel, but we can't sense it, right? Who knows? Only when I reach a certain level will I be able to see through it. All right, let's go." Chun Hao's figure flashed and appeared in front of Xixian. He directly grabbed her hand as if he was doing something very natural. Without asking for Xixian's opinion, he directly grabbed her hand and quickly traveled through the chaotic space. Xixian was stunned for a moment. She wanted to pull away, but when she sensed the speed of Chun Hao's teleportation technique, which was integrated into the laws of space and time, she did not resist in the end. If she let go, there was no way she could keep up with Chun Hao's speed. Chun Hao's attitude made Xixian feel that she was making a fuss over nothing. Wasn't it just holding hands? In the blink of an eye, the two of them had traveled through the chaotic space for a month. Chun Hao, could we be going in the wrong direction? It's been a month, and we still haven't sensed the aura of the great world of CND. Should we change direction? According to Yilan, when the Milky Way tunnel suddenly widened and stepped into the chaotic space, they had to choose a direction based on the position they appeared in and advance for half a month or a month. If they still could not sense the aura of the barrier of the great world of CND, they should use the position they appeared in the chaotic space as the center. With the current position as the radius, they should move forward in a circle. If they could not find it after a full circle, they should expand the radius until they found it. They must not move forward in one direction. If they did, they might get lost in the chaotic space and waste time. Chun Hao's speed was very fast. They had not encountered it after flying for a month. In Xixian's opinion, they should be going in the wrong direction. No, the direction is right. We should be arriving soon, Chun Hao said with great certainty. You can sense it? I should be able to. What do you mean by should be? If we can, we can. If we can't, we can't. I feel that it's in this direction. But I can't sense it. It's intuition. Chun Hao frowned. Chun Hao could not describe this feeling. He could not sense anything, but he was very sure that the barrier of the great world of CND was right in front of them. Chun Hao had this feeling the moment he stepped into the chaotic space from the Milky Way tunnel. Now, as they continued to move forward, the feeling became more and more obvious. Chun Hao did not know why he had this feeling. Intuition. Do you think we're going back to the ancient chaos? Now that you mention it, could it be that I really have something to do with the great world of CND? F***CK. Chun Hao, who was talking, suddenly thought of something. He cursed and said, "My 5 doppelgangers should have entered. I knew it." Xixian was slightly stunned, and then she blushed with shame. Obviously, both she and Chun Hao had forgotten that the 5 doppelgangers had left in advance. Sure enough, after the two of them moved forward for another 3 days, the chaotic space became calmer and calmer. It was obvious that they were close to the barrier of the vast thousand world. Chun Hao and Xixian became slightly excited. Break. Chi. A day later, Chun Hao suddenly made his move and tore apart the spatial barrier. Buzz. Immediately, the two of them appeared in the great world of CND. The great world of CND. This is the great world of CND. As she breathed in the fresh air and sensed the extremely dense spirit energy of the heavens and the earth and the vast and majestic laws of the heaven Tao in the world, Xixian's beautiful face was filled with excitement, and she couldn't help but tighten her grip on Chun Hao's hand. Buzz. Chun Hao's aura suddenly shook, and his appearance and aura completely changed. Even his body expanded. He, who was extraordinarily handsome and slender, directly turned into a chubby, kind-looking little fatty. You've reached the ultimate level of the Great Change technique? How is it? Can you feel it? I can't feel it. You're really abnormal. You've cultivated the great teleportation technique to the ultimate level, and the great change technique to such a level. But you've become like this. Si Xian stared at Chen Hao's chubby face with a strange expression. She had the urge to laugh. I'm too handsome. It's better to keep a low profile. If you don't want to get into trouble, you'd better disguise yourself as a fat woman. Chapter 1158. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Si Xian looked at Chen Hao speechlessly. After a few seconds, she said, You've cultivated the great change technique to the ultimate transformation. I don't have that ability. No matter how I disguise myself, I'll be exposed once I fight. I might as well not disguise myself. Besides, it's fine to disgust others, but why should I disgust myself like this? Buzz. As Si Xian spoke, the aura around her suddenly changed. *CK Chen Hao, who was staring at Si Xian, knew that Si Xian was disguising herself, but her disguise made Chen Hao's balls hurt. It was obviously a prank. With a swish, Chen Hao quickly retreated. Please, you don't have to disguise yourself as a fat woman. Do you have to be so disgusting? Look at me, although I've become a little fatty, am I not quite cute? Chen Hao said while resisting the urge to vomit. Buzz. Is there a difference? Si Xian's aura shook again, and she immediately changed into her original appearance. She stared at Chen Hao. Fine, up to you. Everyone has a love for beauty. Men were not willing to disguise themselves as ugly, let alone women. It was only possible when they had no other choice. But now it was obviously not to that extent. Si Xian naturally would not listen to Chen Hao's suggestion and disguise herself as a fat woman. 1 month later. Supreme Heavenly Law. Our vast thousand worlds may not be worse than the great world of Xiandi, but the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and the aura of the heavenly law are far too weak. Si Xian said. This is normal. The great world of Xiandi is open to all the vast thousand worlds and has gathered the top geniuses of countless vast thousand worlds. Naturally, it has gathered thousands of fortunes. Coupled with the accumulation of countless years, its foundation is simply not comparable to the vast thousand worlds that we have just unified. The same supreme heavenly law, but we can sense it more clearly here, and it's easier for us to comprehend. Chen Hao said softly. Yes, that's why I've come to the right place. That's hard to say. Why is it hard to say? This was already very obvious. Even if it was purely cultivation, it would be faster than cultivating in ancient chaos. You're young, and people look at you in a new light wherever you go, but what about me? 3 lives, endless cycles of reincarnation. They all started from the lowest level, with nothing to rely on. They cultivated step by step, spending tens of millions of years. And it was all for you. Cough cough. You can't say that. I just happened to be the person in Senior Yilan's divination. Isn't your cultivation method just to increase your own strength? Trying to shirk responsibility, little fatty? *CK. You're really cute like this. I don't feel any pressure. Si Xian reached out to pinch Chen Hao's chubby face, but her hand was slapped away by Chen Hao. Master does indeed have a reason for wanting me to increase my strength, but do you think that kind of cultivation is really necessary? If Master had given me a unique cultivation environment, I could have fused 3 lives at a very young age. At that time, I would have come to the great world of Xiandi. With my aptitude, what could I have obtained? What would I be like now, tens of millions of years later? Si Xian asked in succession. From what you're saying, you want me to bring in Qi. Chen Hao's expression suddenly changed. A golden light flashed between his eyebrows and wrapped around Si Xian. Si Xian didn't resist at all and was directly integrated into Chen Hao's mental world. This wasn't the first time. Si Xian knew what she was about to face. In the past month, the two of them had met 7 times. This was the 8th time. The moment Si Xian was sucked into the mental world, Chun Hao's body shook. His fat buttocks seemed to swing back and forth 1,000 times in an instant. With a buzz, he disappeared on the spot. Clearly, he had pushed the great teleportation art to the extreme. Roar! It was also at this moment that a huge monster tore through the void. A terrifying pressure instantly filled the entire space. Its huge body radiated crystal light in all directions, covering the sky and the sun. Chi, streaks of terrifying lightning suddenly spurted out from the mouth of the huge monster. The space within tens of millions of miles was annihilated. Mountains collapsed and the earth caved in. Buzz! Chun Hao's body shook and suddenly appeared tens of millions of miles away. In a flash, he disappeared again. Roar! Rumble in the void, the huge monster that was tens of thousands of feet long and hundreds of feet thick suddenly let out a resonant, angry roar. Little fatty, you can't run away. Obediently surrender to this Dragon King and offer your blood essence to spare your life. Otherwise, when this Dragon King catches you, there will be nothing left of you. Roar! Chi. The huge monster roared and chased in the direction of Chun Hao. It spoke in human language and revealed a domineering aura. With a long roar, endless lightning bloomed. In an instant, it arrived at the place where Chun Hao's body flashed. This huge monster was the primordial divine dragon that had gone extinct in the ancient chaos world. It was a thunder dragon with the lightning attribute. Damn you, Thunder Dragon King, spare me. My body is not even enough to fill the gap between your teeth. Do you really care about that little bit of blood essence? You are at the fourth heaven of the cutting Tao stage. Why do you have to chase after me, a small Deluo Jinxian? If others see you, where will you put your face? Chun Hao pushed the great teleportation technique to the limit. Roar. Face? Little fatty, this Dragon King's mission is to kill you outsiders who sneak in. It's useless to say anything. This Dragon King has taken a fancy to your immortal blood essence. Obediently give it to this Dragon King. Otherwise, there will be nothing left of you. F***ck. Damn you, do you think I'm stupid? If you have the ability, then catch me. If you can't, then agree to my request. Let's mind our own business and go our separate ways. You don't trust this Dragon King? Little fatty, I promise that I won't reveal your secret. I also don't want your immortal treasure. I only want your blood essence. F***ck off. I'd be a fool to believe you. You black-hearted guy. Damn it, this Dragon King is a man of his word. Moreover, this Dragon King can directly recommend you to enter a first-rate academy. Damn it, how many times do I have to say it before you understand? Don't waste your breath. Either you catch me and I'll let you punish me, or you do as I say. Look, the city is in sight. Roar! The Thunder Dragon King was shocked when he heard Chun Hao's words. He immediately let out an even more terrifying roar. Endless lightning covered the sky and rushed toward Chun Hao. You won't cry until you see the coffin. Do you think this will work? Buzz. Chun Hao's voice floated in the void. His fat but suddenly trembled thousands of times. The great teleportation technique suddenly increased by several times. What? Little fatty, stop right there. I promise you. There's no need to stop. The agreement is in effect. Who knows if you'll eat me in one bite? Chi. Chun Hao was as fast as lightning. In a flash, he crossed hundreds of millions of miles. Although he spoke casually, his fat body trembled and he broke out in cold sweat. It could be said that he had pushed his strength to the limit. If he was a bit slower, he believed that he and Xi would become food on the treacherous Thunder Dragon King's plate. Xi, who was in Chun Hao's mind world, also broke out in cold sweat. Her pretty face was pale. Little fatty, the Thunder Dragon King was furious, but when he saw the little fatty who could cross hundreds of millions of miles with a shake of his butt, he finally shut up. The Thunder Dragon King was a fourth-stage Tao severing cultivator, one of the guardians of true martial city on planet Gargantuan. Chen Hao and Si Xian tore through the chaotic space barrier and appeared in the wilderness of true martial city. They happened to meet the Thunder Dragon King. Any cultivator who snuck in from the chaotic space and was lower than the third heaven of cutting Dao True Immortal had to pass the City Guardian's test to qualify to enter the city. The fourth heaven of cutting Dao True Immortal could enter directly. The test was very simple. As long as the snuck-in cultivator's battle strength reached the average level of the great world of CND, they would be allowed to enter regardless of their origin. Chen Hao and Si Xian already knew this when they came to the great world of CND. With Chen Hao and Si Xian's battle strength, they should have passed the Thunder Dragon King's test smoothly. However, Chen Hao and Si Xian didn't expect that the Thunder Dragon King would covet Chen Hao's bloodline aura and have evil intentions. If Chen Hao hadn't cultivated the great teleportation technique to the ultimate level and had soul power, mental state, and willpower that exceeded his cultivation level, he would have been eaten by the Thunder Dragon King. This was the fourth heaven of cutting Dao True Immortal. How strong was that pressure? The strongest pressure was released, and Si Xian was directly imprisoned. She couldn't even move. However, what was Chen Hao's strongest point? Enduring pressure. Chen Hao, who had experienced the Immortal Sutra Sacred Land and the ancient Chaos Domain, had the ability to endure pressure that exceeded his cultivation level by countless times. When the Thunder Dragon King released his pressure and thought that he had defeated Chen Hao, who seemed to be imprisoned, suddenly went crazy. He took Si Xian into his mind world and activated the great teleportation technique to the limit to escape. This time, while the Thunder Dragon King was shocked, he also obtained Chen Hao's secret. This little fatty from the Daluo Golden Wonderland actually had a great world in his mind. Apart from having an extremely powerful true immortal magic treasure, what else could he have? The Thunder Dragon King became even more excited. He believed that he still had the ability to blackmail Chen Hao. This kind of thing definitely went against the highest law set by the ruling class of the great world of CND. However, as a guardian who specialized in testing illegal immigrants, when he encountered something that moved his heart, he often did this kind of thing that went against the law. He would directly blackmail it and no one would notice. However, what the Thunder Dragon King didn't expect was that he, a fourth heaven-cutting Dao True Immortal expert, had chased him for a month and got close to him 8 times. However, he still let him escape. Moreover, it was to the point of no return. The city was in sight. In the Thunder Dragon King's opinion, with this little fatty's shocking talent, he would definitely become a character in the great world of CND in the future. His potential was limitless. Once he entered the city, he would definitely be fought over by the various large factions. At that time, as long as the little fatty said that he had violated the law, he would definitely be in trouble. Fortunately, the little fatty didn't seem to want to expose the fact that he had a great world in his mind. He negotiated with him, and no one sued the other. Chapter 1159. Chen Hao did not expose the fact that the Thunder Dragon King had violated the laws and plotted against him. The Thunder Dragon King kept his mouth shut about the fact that Chen Hao had a great mental world in the Daluo Golden Wonderland and pretended that nothing had happened. At the last moment, the Thunder Dragon King had no choice but to compromise. The great world of CND was a world with perfect laws. Every place and every city had a large number of law enforcement troops. Even if a perfected immortal king was found to have violated the laws, he would be killed. Not to mention, the Thunder Dragon King was a city guardian at the fourth firmament of the Dao severing stage. Of course, these laws were set by the ruler of the great world of CND, just like the laws on Earth. However, the main purpose of the laws set by the ruler of the great world of CND was to create the best martial cultivation environment and to a large extent prevent the chaotic phenomenon of geniuses being strangled. Only then would the top geniuses of the other greater kiliocosms dare to come over with peace of mind and gather supreme providence for the great world of CND. However, it was impossible to completely eliminate it. The secret actions driven by benefits, the protection and even connivance of the powerful figures, the loopholes in the laws, and so on. If one was really naive enough to think that nothing would happen if they did not look for trouble, then it would really be a tragedy. As someone from Earth, Chun Hao could easily see through the situation in the great world of CND. It was just that the mortals on Earth had been replaced by powerful cultivators. Captain, a pair of Dao companions have passed the Thunder Dragon King's test. In the encampment palace at the west gate of the true martial city on planet Great Hua, a cultivator at the fifth firmament of the Dao severing stage looked at the other cultivator in surprise after receiving the message from the token. These two people were the captain and vice-captain of the guards at the west gate. The one who spoke was the vice-captain. Oh! The captain was slightly surprised and immediately said, "Is the potential evaluation very high?" "That's not it. It's just that this pair of Dao companions is very special." Hiss. The vice-captain passed the token to the captain. After the captain read the information that the Lightning Dragon King had transmitted from the token, he immediately revealed a surprised expression. He immediately said, "He is indeed very special. This little fatty might be able to let us earn a commission. It's a pity that this woman's life aura is a little too old. Otherwise, she would definitely earn more than this little fatty." That's right. Little fatty's life aura was less than 20,000 years old, but his battle prowess was already above the average of those in the same realm. He would definitely have no problem entering a second-rate academy. This girl was old. Otherwise, with her primordial body and her looks, she would have been qualified to enter a second-rate academy. Furthermore, there's a chance that you'll be specially recruited by a big shot. That would be a huge gain. In the great world of CND, the clans and sects were on the decline. The strongest were the academies, which were divided into 5 levels. From high to low they were: First Academy of the Immortal Emperor, Top Academy, First Academy, Second Academy, and Third Academy. The First Academy of the Immortal Emperor, as the name implied, was the highest level of the academy. However, it was not a fixed academy. In the competition between the top academies that occurred once every 1,000 years, whoever was the strongest would be the First Academy of the Immortal Emperor. This was a name that flowed like a red flag. Most cultivators were concentrated in the Third Academy. Those who were able to enter the Second Academy were basically geniuses with higher potential. For someone like Chun Hao, who was able to reach the average battle prowess of the Daluo Golden Wonderland at his age, there was no doubt that he would be favored by the Second Academy. It was a pity that Si Xian was too old, which lowered the evaluation of her potential to a large extent. Yes, it is a pity. Since we're almost there, let's go down and take a look. After the two of them finished speaking, their figures directly disappeared from the palace at the city gate. In a moment, they arrived at the entrance of the city gate. Dozens of Dao severing perfected immortal guards stood on both sides of the city gate. When they saw the captain and vice-captain arrive together, they immediately bowed and saluted. Their gazes were filled with curiosity as they looked outside the city gate. They clearly knew what the captain and vice-captain's appearance meant. It was definitely a valuable outsider who had arrived. Otherwise, they would not have bothered to come. Guarding the city gate was a lucrative job. Under normal circumstances, cultivators who entered from outside the city were all outsiders who had smuggled in. Although the great world of CND did not reject such behavior, the conditions for the smugglers to obtain the qualifications to enter the city and become a member of the great world of CND were much higher than cultivators who had entered through the proper channel of the Hongmeng region's Star River Tunnel. Through the proper channel, as long as you came and registered, you would be able to start your life in the great world of CND. There were no requirements for the cultivator's cultivation level and strength. However, the smugglers who had to hide their origins had to reach the average battle prowess of the same cultivation level in the great world of CND. Otherwise, they would not be able to pass the test of the Thunder Dragon King and the other guards. It was also precisely because of this that the outsiders who passed the test would basically obtain the qualifications to enter the academy. Of course, the third academy was where most people ended up. The guards in charge of the city gate often had unspoken deals with the academies in the city. By introducing a cultivator with better potential to participate in the selection of the academy, they would be able to obtain certain benefits. The higher the potential of the cultivator who was introduced, the greater the commission they would receive. For academies that had a competitive relationship, the most fundamental competition started from the talent. The captain and vice-captain would only appear when an outsider who had the potential to enter the third academy appeared. They were too lazy to appear in the third academy. A moment later, two figures appeared in front of the guards. What a beautiful woman! The Supreme of Hongmeng, Daluo Jingxian? F***ck, this little fatty is so lucky. Daluo Jingxian managed to get the supreme beauty of the Supreme of Hongmeng. Amazing! It's a primordial body? Cough cough. No way, her life aura is so old? F***ck, this little fatty is very young. Dozens of Dao severing perfected immortals stared straight at Chen Hao and Si Xian, who were flying quickly from afar. At first glance, many people were stunned by Si Xian's appearance and figure even before they sensed her aura. When they sensed the aura of the two people, they were surprised that the ordinary-looking little fatty could get the heart of a beauty who was a realm higher than him. That kind of feeling was like a fresh flower stuck in cow dung, or a toad eating a swan. However, as they got closer, everyone finally understood what was going on. The little fatty was definitely a very good genius, while Si Xian's appearance, figure, and temperament were first class, but her potential was very ordinary. Greetings, officers and seniors. When the two people quickly landed in front of everyone, Chen Hao's chubby face suddenly turned into a blooming chrysanthemum. He smiled brightly and flatteringly, let go of Si Xian's hand, bowed with cupped fists. Chen Hao's actions made Si Xian frown. Was this really Chen Hao, the god of slaughter who dominated the ancient chaos? I was delayed by something today. Finished updating. The first update has arrived. Dark Mountain continues. Chapter 1160. But it was also because of Chen Hao's flattering smile that Si Xian, who knew this guy's true strength, potential, and character, felt her hair stand on end, a knife hidden in a smile. He probably wouldn't spit out the bones if he ate someone. Little fatty lady, congratulations on passing the Thunder Dragon King's test. From now on, you have the qualifications to cultivate and live in the great world of CND. Report your names, this record will be your identity information in the future. Yes, sir. My name is Li Yuan, this is my Dao companion, Chen Hao. Chen Hao bowed, smiled, and said, use a fake name. This was what Yilan told him. Chen Hao didn't think that his name would be famous in the great world of CND, but he still listened to Yilan's suggestion. Because of the identity of the Shao clan's ancestor. Yilan didn't say much about the specific situation. As for Si Xian, who ran away from home, she naturally used a fake name. Tens of millions of years ago, the pressure Yi Xian brought to the Shao clan's ancestor was extraordinary. The name Si Xian definitely couldn't be used, although Chen Hao also didn't think that a small character like them would cause any waves. Si Xian's face turned slightly red when she heard Chen Hao's words. Although the two of them had already discussed before coming to the city gate, when she heard Chen Hao's introduction, she still felt a little embarrassed. Of course, Si Xian also knew that pretending to be Dao companions would save her a lot of trouble. If it wasn't for the primordial body, it would be even better. But that was impossible. The third life was still bitterly cultivating in the ancient chaos. If she lost her primordial Een body before the fusion, her strength after the fusion would be greatly reduced. More importantly, she and Chun Hao were still worlds apart from being Tao companions. Everyone had a moment of pride in their hearts. Sometimes, the subconscious would always find the best excuse to deceive their true feelings, but the bystanders could see it clearly. Until now, Si Xian still didn't think that her original body had fallen. When she followed Chun Hao to the great world of Xiandi, she subconsciously found a lie to deceive herself. The sooner she came here, the faster she would improve, and the stronger she would be in the future. Her heart was always on Chun Hao, but she thought that it was because of Chun Hao's abnormal talent, and she was just curious. But what was the truth? Just like now, when she heard Chun Hao say that she was his Taoist companion, her face would turn red and her heart would ripple. However, she thought that it was a natural reaction of a woman to this kind of thing. But he didn't realize, or perhaps he didn't care, that there was no rejection in the depths of his heart. Those closely involved could not see clearly. This kind of subtle feeling could only be awakened when one experienced something or experienced a great wave. It was like a man and a woman who lived together day and night. They never thought that they had any feelings for each other, but when they were suddenly separated for a period of time, or when they tried to pursue their true love several times, their minds would be completely occupied by each other's figure. It was not until then that they would suddenly wake up. Li Yuan, Chun Si, Chi, Buzz. The guard captain directly took out 2 tokens and integrated 2 pieces of information into each of them. Immediately, he sent them in front of Chun Hao and Si Xian. This is your identity token. Drop a drop of blood and refine it. In the future, you will be able to walk in the great world of Xiandi. Little fatty, your talent and potential are not bad. Your Taoist companion is excellent in all aspects. The only flaw is that her life force is too old. If you want to enter an academy, I'm afraid it will be very difficult. The old man thinks that you are very pleasing to the eye. This is for you. With the old man's token, perhaps you will have hope of entering the Green Immortal Academy together. It is a very good second-rate academy. Captain. At this moment, the vice-captain suddenly looked at the captain and shouted in surprise. It was as if the captain had done something very painful. It's okay. I think this little fatty is very pleasing to the eye. It can be considered a kind of fate. What is a little favor? The captain waved his hand to stop the vice-captain and smiled at Chun Hao. Chun Hao just looked at the captain in surprise, as if he didn't understand the situation. Si Xian, on the other hand, was slightly excited. Second-rate academy. According to her estimation, she would be able to enter a third-rate academy. Little fatty, why are you still not thanking the captain? This is a great favor. You are very lucky to have our captain's favor. Ah? Thank you, captain. How should I address you? This little one will remember it in his heart. In the future, I will repay you. Hearing the vice-captain's words, Chun Hao suddenly seemed to wake up from his daze. He immediately said with tears of gratitude. He was so excited that his hands trembled a little as he took the token from the captain. The old man does not ask you to repay him. There is no need to mention his name. All right, go. When the time comes, hand it over to the examiners of the Green Immortal Academy. The old man's face should be useful. Yes, a good person. Si Xian, we have met a benefactor. Senior, I will come to see you. Chun Hao bowed again. His eyes were brimming with tears as he pulled Si Xian, who was also very grateful to the captain. He turned around and stepped into the city gate. This little fatty is really a sentimental person. Ha. A little interesting. Captain, I think this kid will definitely come back to repay you in the future. That look of gratitude. Ha. That Chun Si is not as simple as she looks. She has lived for tens of millions of years and has a body of primordial Een, but her face does not have the slightest bit of aging. Her vitality seems to be in its twilight years, but there is a faint trace of vitality. Oh? Impressive. Captain's eyesight seems to have improved again. I did not sense anything. The vice-captain was slightly surprised. However, it is indeed a little strange. I did not feel it when I saw the image, but when I looked closely, this woman's face did not have the slightest trace of aging tens of millions of years. Even we have become like this. However, she must have consumed some powerful spirit medicine. Yes, it must be. Otherwise, she would have already reached the cutting Tao stage and would not have wasted tens of millions of years. Even if she came to the great world of Xiandi, the gains would not make up for the losses. If the guards of the city gate wanted to get enough benefits, they must have good eyesight. And the captain's eyes were undoubtedly sharp, much stronger than the lightning dragon king's. Otherwise, he would not have been able to see through Si Xian's abnormality. On the wide streets of true martial city, countless cultivators of different realms looked at the two figures that appeared in the city. Chen Hao, who had transformed into a little fatty, did not seem to feel anything. He simply did not care about the crowds pointing and whispering. He only pulled Si Xian, and like Granny Lu entering the Grandview Garden, he was full of curiosity and excitement as he paid attention to the palaces that stood on both sides of the street. It was filled with rare spirit item shops, soft armor, special treasures, rune shops, divine weapons shops, strange item shops, pawn shops, banks, taverns, inns, and so on. There was everything that one could think of. The only hard currency here was the immortal crystal coins that the ruling class of the great world of Xiandi had unified and refined. There are 2 updates today. Chapter 1161. Immortal crystal coins contained a limited amount of heaven and earth spiritual qi, and could not be refined and absorbed by cultivators. To be exact, immortal crystal coins were of no use to cultivators. However, the ruling class of the great world of Xiandi had turned it into the only currency in the great world of Xiandi. Just like the paper money on Earth, it had no value in itself, but it was a recognized currency. Shall we go directly to the Green Immortal Academy? Si Xian frowned slightly and transmitted her voice. Obviously, the glances and discussions of the cultivators around her made her unable to remain calm. To her, the word old was too harsh to the ears. But that was the truth, so what could she do? Moreover, whether it was the low-level Daluo Jinxian, the Supreme Hongmeng, or the high-level cutting Dao True Immortals, there were a lot of people with powerful auras. This was not something the ancient chaos boundless world could compare to. Fortunately, Si Xian was already mentally prepared, so she could still endure it. What are we going there for? Chen Hao turned to look at Si Xian and asked in surprise. Of course it's to enter an academy, a second-rate academy. That captain is really a good person. It doesn't matter to you, but if I can enter a second-rate academy, it will be very difficult. Si Xian said very seriously, but she saw Chen Hao staring at her strangely. She suddenly thought of something and said, "Forget it, give me the token, and I won't affect you. You can enter a first-rate academy." "How old are you this year?" Chen Hao asked. Si Xian blushed and said, "You already know the answer, so what if I'm old? I feel that you're still underage, can we not be so naive?" "What do you mean? Do you really think that old guy is a good person? Even if you were sold, you would still count the money for him." Chen Hao said speechlessly. "It can't be, he gave us the token and recommended us. Could it be fake? At most, we can't enter, so we can't be sold." Si Xian said. "Remember, don't let your guard down at any time. You didn't see the old guy's eyes at that time, right? You didn't notice the way the two of them acted, right? You also didn't notice the expressions of the guards around you, right?" Chen Hao said. "No, don't think too badly of yourself. You have cultivated the 9 lives profound technique. Although you have lived for tens of millions of years, your face has not aged at all. Moreover, you're only in the Hongmeng realm. You haven't cut the path, so you haven't settled down yet. Also, you have a primordial body and your looks are just SOSO. These are all your bargaining chip. Just based on these conditions, you may be able to obtain the qualifications to enter a second-rate academy. Naturally, I have no problem with that. Si Xian frowned slightly. It was obvious that Chen Hao's words made her a little depressed. She retorted, "Isn't that still a second-rate academy? We are both Daluo Jinxian. You can casually pick a Daluo Jinxian in Ancient Chaos. Can he be compared to me?" Chen Hao said through voice transmission. At the same time, he looked at a female Dao severing true immortal cultivator not far away. He pulled Si Xian closer to her. "Hello, pretty sister, can I ask you a question?" Chen Hao's chubby face once again turned into a blooming chrysanthemum. However, his eyes were clear and his expression simple and honest. He cupped his fist and asked the female cultivator. "Ha, little fatty, you're new here?" Sister's eyes are as sharp as torches. "We just arrived here. Do you know Green Nether Academy?" Green Nether Academy? The female cultivator was slightly taken aback. She immediately understood. "Did the guards at the city gate recommend you? They even gave you a token?" "I don't need you to say it, I can guess. Little fatty, you're so young and your aura is not bad. If you can pass the examination and enter the city, you'll definitely have no problem entering a second-rate academy. As for your female companion, I advise you to go through the proper channels, otherwise it'll be too late for regrets. Green Nether Academy is only at the bottom of the second-rate academy. You can consider my academy Jinxing Academy. It's above average among the second-rate academies. Of course, if you're not in a hurry, it's best if you can cultivate for a while before considering joining the academy. It'll be good for you." "Thank you, sister." "You're welcome. Little fatty, your mouth is quite sweet." Si Xian was a little speechless as she followed Chen Hao to bid farewell to pretty sister. "Did you hear that? What she said is true. The appearance is born from the heart. Brother, I've always been very good at judging people. Moreover, I'm so honest and cute. Why would she need to lie to me?" Chen Hao said proudly. It has to be said that after becoming like this, although he lost his handsomeness, it was easier for him to gain the goodwill of others. Harmless to humans and animals, forget it. If you don't want to go, then don't go. Let's see what happens. Si Xian stared at Chen Hao for a moment before saying, "Let's find a pawn shop first." Chen Hao replied, "In the ancient chaos-boundless world, once one's cultivation reached a certain level, one would not need to eat. One could condense a palace anywhere or live in the wilderness. It didn't matter whether one had money or not. But in the great world of Xiandi, this was not the case. Other than the cultivators who had just entered the city, who had 1 year of free time, all the cultivators had to pay a certain amount of immortal crystal coins according to the number of days they stayed in the city. Moreover, no one could casually condense a palace on the streets of the city for living and cultivation. To survive here, one had to buy one's own palace or choose to live in an inn. There were many ways to obtain immortal crystal coins. One was to work as a coolie and go to the great world of Xiandi Alliance's mission center to accept missions and obtain rewards. Another was to participate in the academy's assessment. As long as one could become a student of the academy, one would be able to obtain a basic living guarantee. Third was to obtain rewards through fighting in the Alliance's challenge center. Fourth was to enter various chambers of commerce and forces and obtain wages by working for them. Fifth was to sell oneself. Both men and women could sell themselves, as long as one had the qualifications to sell themselves. This was equivalent to the young miss and young master on Earth. In the great world of Xiandi, it was a legal existence. Moreover, it was a very popular industry. The difference was that this was an industry that cultivators engaged in. It was simply impossible to sell one's body. Therefore, appearance was not the most important. Cultivation, comprehension, and talent were the most important asset. However, legal was legal. But those who engaged in this industry were still despised by most people. Just like on Earth, they were basically doing it secretly under disguises, and there were people from low level to high level. Those who did it for money were in the minority, and those who did it for cultivation were the majority. While selling oneself, they were also cultivating. It was the same nature as the Happy Valley back then. It had just become a public industry. Hello, miss. Just as Chen Hao and Si Xian were about to step into a pawnshop, a young-looking peak late-stage Grandmist Supremacy Realm expert suddenly blocked their way. He directly ignored Chen Hao and greeted Si Xian with cupped fist. His eyes were shining, or rather, they were shining with lust. Chapter 1162. Si Xian immediately stopped and frowned slightly. Chen Hao also stopped with Si Xian, but he took half a step forward and slightly surpassed Si Xian. He said, "I'm her cultivation partner. What do you want?" At this moment, the cultivator glanced at Chen Hao's face and smiled slightly. He still looked at Si Xian. His lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. Si Xian's expression changed. It was obvious that the cultivator was talking to her. However, after a moment, Si Xian directly said with a cold face, "Not interested. Fatty, let's go." After Si Xian finished speaking, she pulled Chen Hao around and continued to walk toward the entrance of the pawnshop. "Miss, are you really not going to consider it? Your life aura is very old. This is the best way for you to improve quickly." The cultivator's figure flashed, and he once again blocked the two of them and said directly. Si Xian's special situation had already attracted the attention of many people. At this time, many cultivators who were passing by stopped and chose to watch. Such a scene was a common occurrence in true Martial City, or any of the border cities of the immortal Emperor's great thousand world. Moreover, it mainly happened to beauties with primordial in-body, and their talent was basically average. "Not interested. Please move aside," Si Xian said coldly. "Don't be in a hurry to refuse. The great world of Xiendi is not as simple as you think. Once you've thought about it, you can come and find me at any time," the cultivator said with a smile, his lustful eyes still sweeping over Si Xian's body. "Do you think Sima Duali will succeed this time? It's difficult today, but it's hard to say later. This pair of cultivation partners seems to have just arrived at the great world of Xiendi. They don't know the cruelty of the great world of Xiendi yet. After they stay for a while, the possibility of yielding is high. This beauty's life aura is so old. In the face of benefits, how will she choose? How many people can resist the temptation?" That's true. Beauty is also a kind of innate capital. Although this beauty's life aura is old, her face does not show any signs of aging. She looks like a mature girl. What's more rare is that she still has her primordial in-body. Maybe he can become the plaything of a big shot above the sixth heaven of cutting path. In the future, his improvement will be fast. Sima Duali, the cultivator who stopped Chen Hao and Si Xian, was one of the people who specialized in this kind of headhunting job in the true Martial City. He had judged Si Xian's value at first glance. If it wasn't for the fact that his life aura was very old, he would definitely be able to sell it to true Martial City's top figures who had this hobby. However, even so, Si Xian's beautiful youthful appearance and primordial in-body could be sold for a high price. After all, there were many rich people who didn't care about talent at all. They only cared about looks and figures. This little fatty is really good at enduring. His Dao companion is about to be snatched away, but he doesn't even say a word. He's even smiling foolishly. "Are you done? If you're done, can you step aside?" Chen Hao said in a lukewarm tone. "Miss, although this little fatty's talent is good for his age, but at best, he is only from a second-rate academy. Moreover, he is only Daluo Jinxian. Even if he is of help to you in the future, can you afford to wait? Think about it carefully. Put down your reservations, and a bright future will appear in front of you. Moreover, this little fatty is simply a good-for-nothing. Why do you have to be reluctant to part with him? Please be more respectful when you speak. He is my Dao companion, Si Xian said angrily. As she spoke, the hand that was holding Chen Hao's hand tightened. Obviously, she was afraid that Chen Hao would flip out. Others didn't know, but she was still clear. If Chen Hao was speaking, she would feel more at ease. However, after he spoke a sentence, he fell silent, squinted his eyes, and smiled foolishly. This made Si Xian feel afraid. She had just entered the great world of Xiandi. She didn't want to cause trouble. Although no one dared to kill in public in the great world of Xiandi, what about in secret? No matter how strict the rules were, they were not the rules of the heavenly Tao. They couldn't be completely monitored. Enduring was a must. However, are you done talking? Chen Hao also held Si Xian's hand tightly. He took a step forward and pulled Si Xian directly to the cultivator. His chubby face still had a silly smile as he asked, "Let's go this way." Si Xian pulled Chen Hao and was about to go around again. However, Chen Hao's feet seemed to be rooted to the ground. His chubby body didn't even move. "Oh? Little fatty, I said that you are a good-for-nothing. Do you want to show off? I'm done talking. Welcome to the challenge." Sima Duoli's lips curled up slightly as he said mockingly, "Do you think I'm stupid? If you're done talking, then scram. A good dog doesn't block the way." "What did you say? Are you deaf?" "Fine, I'm too lazy to talk to you. Tell me your name, identity, and category. When I become the Supreme of Hongmeng, you'll be the first one I'll kill." "Haha, why wait? I can seal myself to the Zenith Heaven realm to fight with you. What do you think?" Sima Duoli's eyes flashed with an undetectable murderous intent as he said provocatively, "I see." Chen Hao seemed a little surprised. He rubbed his nose and said, "It's not a battle of life and death, right? It's up to you." Sima Duoli didn't dare to be too harsh. Otherwise, if little fatty didn't agree to his challenge, he would lose everything. If it wasn't a battle of life and death, he could defeat little fatty and help Si Xian join him. Why not do it? "I hate killing people the most, no matter if they are rich or poor. Although you are a little cheap. So, let's not have a battle of life and death. Let's determine the winner and loser. However, I'm not interested in a battle without a prize." F***ck Chen Hao's words made Sima Duoli want to strangle him to death. However, before the challenge contract was signed, he could only endure it for now. He said, "So, you want to make a bet? Little fatty, are you stupid? This Sima Duoli is very strong. Even if he is in the sealed realm, his combat skills, soul power, and mental state are all at the level of the Supreme of Hongmeng. How can you defeat him?" At this moment, a voice sounded in Chen Hao's ears. "Pretty sister? Don't worry, I'm still very strong. This shameless woman tried to seduce my Dao partner. I can tolerate it, but I can't." Chen Hao looked at the crowd in surprise and immediately saw the female Dao severing true immortal who had spoken earlier. "Your temperament is not good. The great world of Xiandi is very cruel and dangerous. The legal restrictions are only on the surface. You just came here, so you should be more patient. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to move an inch in the future." The female cultivator was standing hand in hand with a true immortal who was stronger than her. Yes, thank you for your reminder," Chen Hao replied. Then, he said to Sima Duoli, "Of course. 10,000 immortal crystal coins. Do you dare?" "Haha. 10,000 immortal crystal coins. Do you still dare? 100,000 immortal crystal coins. If you lose, leave this lady. You don't have to give me any immortal crystal coins," Sima Duoli said disdainfully. Although he was a primordial chaos sovereign, He was very skilled in the headhunting business. He could definitely be considered a rich man. However, after seeing Si Xian today, he was afraid that she would be snatched away by others. That was why he acted so aggressively and urgently. Every profession had its own rules. Now that he was the first to find out and take action, no one else could interfere. However, if he did not settle the matter now, other hunters would intervene. At that time, it would be a competition and the chances of getting Si Xian would be very small. That was the reason why he acted so boldly today. Of course, it was also because of Chen Hao's cultivation level and appearance that made him think that Si Xian did not have any feelings for this little fatty. *T. Gambling is gambling. What does it have to do with my Dao partner? 100,000 immortal crystal coins it is. I'm not afraid of anyone in the same cultivation level as me. Buzz. Chen Hao took out the identity token that was given to him at the city gate. His mind entered the token and it shone brightly. Buzz. Sima Duoli was so angry at Chen Hao that he almost vomited blood. However, he did not hesitate and took out his own token. Daluo Jingxian, Li Yuan, Supreme of Hongmeng, Sima Duoli. This little fatty is called Li Yuan. 2 bright rays of light formed their respective cultivation level and names in the void. This was the process that one had to go through to sign the Great World of Xiandi's challenge contract. Although it was Chen Hao's first time using it, with Yi Lan's experience, he was very clear about the basic rules of the Great World of Xiandi. Si Xian knew that she could not stop Chen Hao. However, Si Xian was relieved that he had sealed his cultivation level. Others might not know Chen Hao well, but how could she not know? In the same cultivation level, even in the Great World of Xiandi, only a small group of top figures could defeat Chen Hao. Chen Hao, who had transformed into a little fatty, had restrained himself a lot after his experience with the Thunder Dragon King. He did not even dare to release his bloodline aura. If not, Sima Duoli would not be so arrogant as to fight Chen Hao with his sealed cultivation level. Buzz, 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 buzz. The aura of the token was released. In just a few breaths, several fourth heaven true immortals in bright armor and uniform stepped out of the space-time gate that suddenly appeared in the void. They were the enforcers of the real martial city. Li Yuan, you want to challenge Sima Duoli? The old man in the lead looked down at Chen Hao and Sima Duoli, who had taken out their tokens, and asked expressionlessly. Yes. His sealed cultivation level is Daluo Jingxian. The bet is 100,000 immortal crystal coins. That's right. Enforcers, please seal him. This is 100,000 immortal crystal coins. Buzz. As Sima Duoli spoke, he took out a storage ring with immortal crystal coins on it. I have 10 divine artifacts here. They should be worth 100,000 immortal crystal coins. Buzz. Chen Hao had already prepared. He took out 10 divine artifacts that he had originally planned to exchange for immortal crystal coins when he came to the great world of Xiandi. Ancient divine artifacts are worth 100,000 immortal crystals. The enforcer glanced at them and said indifferently. He waved his hand and put away the 2 bet. At the same time, the other 5 enforcers pointed their fingers at Sima Duoli. Buzz. Sima Duoli was immediately surrounded by endless runes and immortal light. Immediately, his cultivation level and aura were sealed in the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Rise. Buzz. The enforcer leader's glabella flashed, and a huge arena suddenly rose into the air and floated directly in the void. Chen Hao and Si Xian were shocked. They also had a clearer understanding of the complete law system and powerful foundation of the great world of Xiandi. Chapter 1163. A Mobile Arena. It was a specially condensed magic treasure. The powerful aura of the spacetime technique and the mystery of the runes were beyond the knowledge of Chen Hao and Si Xian. Obviously, it was a genuine, immortal magic treasure. This was only the real martial city. How many cities like this were there in the great world of CND? Moreover, the huge real martial city had more than one enforcement team. In other words, there was more than one mobile arena in the real martial city. Ancient chaos, which had just been unified, could not be compared to this enforcer. We are just fighting in the golden celestial stage. Is there a need for such a high-level arena? Just as Chun Hao was about to enter the arena, Sima dually said with a pained expression. The low-level arenas are in use. Only this one is available. 5,000 fairy crystal coins per minute. The minimum time limit is 1 minute. The maximum deduction is the wager of both of you. There is no need to pay extra. The time starts now. The enforcer's face darkened and he looked at Sima dually. He was obviously impatient and said coldly, "Are you serious?" When Chun Hao heard the enforcer's words, the fat on his face trembled. F***CK, isn't this robbery? 5,000 fairy crystal coins per minute. If they fought for 2 minutes, it would be 10,000 fairy crystal coins. If they fought for 20 minutes, even if they won, the 100,000 fairy crystal coins would be gone. Chi. Without saying a word, Sima dually flew toward the arena with a gloomy face. Looking at the situation, it was obvious that they could not go back on their words and challenge the arena. Chen Hao also flew toward the arena with a pained expression. If he had known this, Chen Hao would not have taken the initiative to use the token. The enforcement team was too deceitful. Of course, it was also their fault that they did not ask at the beginning and signed the contract directly. Otherwise, they could still go back on their words before the enforcement team took action. And now, both of them had already made their moves. Furthermore, they had even brought out their battle rings. Evidently, there was no turning back. Little fatty, lie down. Chi. The moment the two of them entered the arena, Sima dually violently shot out sword radiance from his hand. Originally, he had wanted to trample on Chun Hao and display his super-powerful battle skills and Abijna law to let Si Xian know the true strength of the cultivators of the great world of CND. But now, he could only choose to end the battle quickly. 1 minute was 5,000 immortal crystal coins. Even if he was rich, it was relative. 100,000 immortal crystal coins was a large sum. How could he waste it? Therefore, this guy directly raised his power to the peak. The dazzling and majestic sword light carried a terrifying might and boundless Tao laws as it enveloped Chen Hao. This little fatty is too impulsive. The female cultivator who tried to persuade Chen Hao frowned and shook her head when she saw Sima duo's sword light. Not necessarily. What surprised the female cultivator was that her Dao companion beside her smiled and stared at Chen Haodao, who was in the arena. The female cultivator's Taoist companion was a 4th-stage Dao severing perfected immortal. She was also one of the 4th-stage Dao severing experts in Jin Xing Academy. This little fatty's life aura is extremely young. Moreover, he must have concealed his aura and pretended to be weak. Concealed his aura and pretended to be weak? You can tell? I can't tell from him. But take a closer look at his Taoist companion. She has lived for tens of millions of years, but her appearance has not aged at all. Moreover, her life aura still contains a trace of vitality. She must have possessed the ability to Dao severing long ago, but she has not done so. She is still in Hongmeng and has retained her primordial Yin body. If not for her confidence in her lifespan, who would spend tens of millions of years to come to the great world of CND, she either has swallowed a precious spiritual item of heaven and earth, or she has cultivated a kind of ultimate technique. If you carefully sense her aura, she must be very strong in Hongmeng. In a second-rate academy, she is definitely a first-rate expert in the same realm. If she fought with Sima dually, she might not lose. But she did not stop him. When you look at her eyes again, is there any worry? No, there is only a trace of excitement. You are so powerful, you look so carefully, don't tell me. Don't talk nonsense. I only have you in my heart. I only paid more attention because you care about this little fatty. Looking at a man's strength through his Taoist companion is also a method. Just like you, when others see you, they will know that I am not weak. No matter how I hide, don't you think so? Are you praising yourself or praising me? This little fatty is so fast. Great teleportation technique. The exchange of thoughts between the two of them only lasted for a split second. At their realm, as spectators who were not affected by the pressure of the Tao marks, the speed of their mental state was undoubtedly countless times faster than the movements of the people fighting. Great teleportation technique? That's right. He is indeed not simple. It can't be? This fatty's speed is actually so fast? The female cultivator and her Taoist companion were not the only ones who were surprised. Chen Hao's fat body suddenly teleported in a flash, causing all the spectating cultivators to reveal shocked expressions. Eat this fat master's fist. Boom. Chen Hao, who had already transformed into a fatty, swung his fat buttocks at a high frequency, creating numerous afterimages. After suddenly dodging the terrifying sword light, he directly appeared above his opponent's head. His entire body was blown up like a balloon, turning into a round shape. At the same time, he sent out a punch. Chi. The fist that was like a towering mountain, carrying a desolate aura that could destroy everything in the world, came crashing down. Courting death. Chi. Sima Duoli, who was also shocked by Chen Hao's terrifying speed, roared angrily and waved his sword to meet the attack. The majestic power that was filled with a desolate aura forced him to be on guard and use all his strength to deal with it. In just 2 moves, he already knew that he had underestimated this fatty. Whether it was his state of mind, will, or comprehension of the heavenly Tao, this fatty was not inferior to him. Otherwise, he would not have been able to dodge his full-force attack so easily and directly attack above his head. This made him very angry and pained. He concluded that it was not something that could be done in 1 or 2 minutes to defeat this fatty. He was afraid that his bet with this fatty would be given to the law enforcement officer. Rumble! The terrifying sword light and Chen Hao's mountain-like fist collided. The seemingly terrifying fist light was directly annihilated by the sword light, as if it could not withstand a single blow. F***CK. However, at this moment, Sima Duoli suddenly burst into a roar of horror and anger. Chi 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 chi, boom boom boom. Then, the terrifying explosion of energy resounded throughout the world. All the spectating cultivators, including Si Xian, widened their eyes and were dumbfounded. F***CK, this works too? That's too cruel. It can't be. Is this a F***king battle with Daluo Jinxian? This fatty really doesn't want to live. He's ruthless. He's so shameless. Chapter 1164. Once the divine ability was unleashed, it would connect with the mind and soul. Only when the divine ability was fully unleashed would the mind and soul withdraw. This was the most basic principle. Before the divine ability was fully unleashed, forcefully withdrawing would cause the mind and soul to suffer a backlash that was even greater than if the divine ability was destroyed by an expert. The damage to one's body would be huge. Because of this, under normal circumstances, no one would, or rather, no one would dare to, forcefully withdraw before the divine ability was fully unleashed. That was purely because one was making life difficult for themselves. However, what the crowd did not expect was that, after this little fatty unleashed a punch with all his might, he actually forcefully withdrew. What was even more ridiculous was that the moment he forcefully withdrew, he did not care about the backlash and used the great teleportation technique again. His fat body flashed and rushed behind Sima Duoli. If that was all, it would be fine. However, what was even crazier was that the little fatty was like a human cannonball. He opened his arms and with a speed as fast as a ghost, he directly hugged Sima Duoli, who had no time to withdraw from the attack, from the waist. At the same time, he also locked Sima Duoli's arms. Such a crazy, sinister, thrilling, dangerous, and shameless way of fighting was definitely unheard of. However, the little fatty had succeeded in locking. As Sima Duoli roared in horror and crazily urged his energy to burst out from his body, Chen Hao was blasted to the point that his fat skin was overturned and his flesh was torn apart. However, his fat body made cracking sounds as his bones and tendons trembled. His hands and body were like steel bars and iron hoops that squeezed Sima Duoli's body until it was completely distorted. His brute force was endless, accompanied by an endless aura of desolation that devoured life. Under the shocked gaze of the crowd, Sima Duoli's roar turned into a scream of fear. The fatty's injuries were getting worse and worse, but he did not let go. Sima Duoli struggled more and more crazily, but his life force and strength were rapidly weakening. The color of his face instantly turned gray. Pung! Finally, the two of them fell from the void of the arena and landed on the hard, rune-filled ground of the arena. Damn it, still not admitting defeat? Boom! The fat man was covered in blood. The moment he landed on the ground, he flipped over and sat on top of Sima Duoli. His fat body and fat but almost flattened Sima Duoli, who was lying on the ground. What made everyone speechless, what made Si Xian want to cover her face and pretend not to know Chen Hao was, not only was this fellow riding Sima Duoli, he was also quickly getting up and down, sitting down, getting up again, and sitting down again. Under the desolate aura and mysterious runes that surrounded him, Chen Hao was like a rammed foundation. Every time he landed, Sima Duoli, whose life force was getting weaker and weaker, let out a sound, followed by a mouthful of essence blood. The man's eyes widened, and the woman felt nauseous and blushed. This was 2F** king similar to some kind of camera. You dare to have designs on Lord Fatty's woman? Grandpa Fatty will sit you to death. Motherf** I wanted to keep a low profile. But you forced me to reveal my identity. And Lord Fatty's trump card. Motherf** still not admitting defeat? You're courting death. Seems like you are not satisfied enough. Everyone's expression twitched. Motherf**, this little fatty is too shameless. How is this not admitting defeat? It is obvious that you did not give him a chance to speak. The moment he opened his mouth, he was smashed by your butt, and the words that came out of his mouth were, ah. But at this moment, the fat man suddenly made a move that made everyone break out in cold sweat. This fellow actually took out a thick, big, and long red spear, Overlord spear. Chi. This time, when everyone saw the fat man holding the spear with both hands and stabbing downwards, all the men present shuddered. Their legs tightened and their buttocks turned cold. Enough. Chi. The law enforcement officer who had waited long enough finally made his move. In fact, the winner and loser had already been decided, but they could not wait for the other party to delay for a while so that they could deduct more commission. Being able to deduct all the money from the bet was undoubtedly the most satisfactory result. But now, seeing the wretched, shameless, obscene, and crazy actions of the little fatty, it would be unreasonable if they did not stop the competition. After all, this was not a life and death duel. If something happened, they would have to take responsibility. The law enforcement officer waved his hand and released a terrifying immortal light, directly separating the two. Li Yuanxing. The battle time is 8 minutes and 39 seconds, calculated as 9 minutes. This is the bet of 55,000 immortal crystal coins and your ancient sacred weapon. Chi. The law enforcement officer directly announced the result of the battle and sent the bet to Chen Hao. Little fatty, you are a cultivator from the vast thousand worlds, right? To Chen Hao's surprise, when he received the bet, the voice of the leader of the law enforcement officers rang in his mind. Senior, how did you know? Chen Hao was covered in blood and his flesh was lacerated, but his essence, qi, and spirit seemed to have been seriously exhausted. However, his expression remained unchanged and he transmitted his voice. How could Old Man not know the aura of the Heavenly Wasteland Sutra? Old Man was also born in the vast thousand worlds. Remember, in the future you have to endure everything. With your fighting style, if you meet an expert, you are simply courting death. You are definitely a rare genius to be able to comprehend the Heavenly Wasteland Sutra to this extent. Work hard and improve your real combat strength is the most important thing. Cough cough. Thank you for your teachings, Senior. Chen Hao wiped the blood and sweat on his face and transmitted his voice. Chi. The law enforcement officer directly attacked, and Chen Hao and Sima Duoli were immediately sent out of the arena. Immediately, the arena flashed and disappeared between the eyebrows of the leader of the law enforcement officers. The group instantly stepped into the space-time gate and disappeared into the void. Cici, quick, help me, in the void, Chen Hao shouted. Si Xian looked at Chen Hao's lacerated flesh and dispirited appearance. Although she knew that this guy was pretending, she had to cooperate with him. She looked very touched, heartbroken, and worried. She directly soared into the air and hugged Chen Hao's arm tightly. Her acting skills were definitely top-notch. Of course, to be able to act so well, her attitude was naturally very correct. At least, it was not all a pretense. Are your injuries serious? I'm fine. For you, this injury is nothing. Chen Hao's obviously painful and dispirited fat face squeezed out a smile like a blooming chrysanthemum. Damn. This little fatty is really not simple. Many people in the crowd exclaimed in their hearts. Little fatty. Chi. At this moment, the female cultivator and her cultivation partner's figure flashed and appeared in front of Chen Hao and Si Xian. Chapter 1165. Nice to meet you, pretty sister. Is this your Tao partner? He's righteous, clean, handsome, and has a powerful aura. You're so lucky, sister. Chen Hao looked at the female cultivator's Tao partner, and his mouth was filled with honey. However, his originally chubby face was now pale and dispirited with blood stains, making him look extremely comical. You flatter me, little brother. The female cultivator's Tao partner cupped her fists and said to Chen Hao. She smiled because of Chen Hao's compliment. Little fatty, I'm Fan Ling, and my Tao partner is Zhou Yuchen. Are you seriously injured? Fan Ling asked with concern. She was secretly delighted because of little fatty's compliment to her Tao partner. No matter how hard one tried, flattery would never work. Regardless of whether Chen Hao's compliment was genuine or not, Fan Zhen and Zhou Yuchen were very pleased. So you're called Fan Ling, don't worry, Sister Ling. I'm tough, and this injury is nothing. Sister Ling, Brother Chen, let me formally introduce myself. I'm Li Yuan. You can call me Little Fatty. My Tao partner is Chen Hao. Chen Hao said. While Chen Hao was talking, Si Xian, who was supporting Chen Hao, surged with Tao Law energy. She was obviously helping Chen Hao heal his injuries. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Si Xian nodded slightly at the two of them but did not say anything. Si Xian's aura was too old, but she was only a supremacy of Hongmeng. Chen Hao kept calling her sister and brother. How should she address Si Xian, who was his Tao partner? She could not say that. Countless spectators were attracted by the arena battle. Regardless of their cultivation base, they were all watching and discussing the little fatty who had shocked them. As for Sima Duoli, who was almost penetrated by the Overlord's spear, after panting for a moment, he did not say a word. He dragged his lifeless body and left dejectedly. He had failed miserably. No matter what, he had to get back at them. A dog that bites does not bark. He wasn't stupid enough to say a few words before he left. That would be meaningless. Chen Si, just like your name. I'll call you Cici. Fan Ling, on the other hand, smiled slightly. Looking at Si Xian's delicate face that didn't show any signs of aging, she said, "Little fatty, it's too dangerous for you to fight like this. Don't force yourself. Cici, take him to our residence to heal first." This. Si Xian looked at Chen Hao. No need, no need. Sister Ling, we can just find an inn. We just earned some money, haha. There's no need to trouble you. I think Big Brother Chen should also have just returned from his training, right? I can't disturb you. Thank you for your kindness. Chen Hao said. All right then. We are in Jinxing Academy. You should be able to pass the assessment. If you are interested, let me know. Yu Chen may be able to help you a little. Fanjin said. NN, Sister Ling, Brother Chen, then we'll be going. See you again. Yes. Little brother, be careful of Sima Duoli. He is a member of the Headhunter Guild. He has a strong background and has connections with many important people. If you provoke him, there will be trouble in the future. If there is a challenger, it's best not to agree before you understand the situation of the other party. It's best not to do solo missions or leave the city before you enter the academy. The dangers of the great world of CND are definitely not as simple as you think. When Chen Hao was supported by Si Xian and quickly left, Zhou Yuchen's voice appeared in Chen Hao's mind. And, thank you Brother Chen for the reminder. After Si Xian stepped out of the crowd with Chen Hao, she flew away quickly and disappeared from everyone's sight in the blink of an eye. Very quickly, the gathered cultivators dispersed without causing any commotion. If such a battle was in ancient chaos, it might cause a commotion, but in the great thousand world of the immortal emperors, it couldn't be any more normal. In the eyes of many people, Chen Hao's strength was just so. The only thing that stood out was the great teleportation technique and the heavenly wasteland scripture. To be able to defeat Sima Duoli, it wasn't a true suppression of strength, but a desperate, wretched, shameless, crazy battle tactic. However, there were a few people like Fan Zhen and Zhou Yuchen who saw that little fatty Chen Hao and Si Xian were not as simple as they seemed. But they just saw it and didn't care. In the great thousand immortal emperors world, there were too many people hiding their strength. There were also too many people pretending to be pigs to eat tigers. In such a competitive world where geniuses gathered, no one would reveal all their trump cards. Or rather, no one dared to. Unless they had a strong background and their strength had reached the peak of the same realm. When the top geniuses from different greater worlds entered the great world of CND, no matter if they were dragons or tigers, they had to lie down. Forbearance was a lesson that every cultivator had to learn. You don't have to pretend anymore? In the room of the inn, Chen Hao was supported by Si Xian. After closing the door and opening the seal, Si Xian let go of Chen Hao and said. Her face was slightly red. Although she had already expected that they would encounter such a scene when they pretended to be Taoist companions, she still felt strange when they entered a room together. A man and a woman alone, traveling together was a very dangerous thing. It was even more dangerous to enter a room together. It was impossible to say that he didn't feel anything. I feel okay. Chen Hao looked at Si Xian, smiled, shook his arm and said. Being supported by Si Xian was undoubtedly a very intimate contact. How could Chen Hao not feel anything? Of course, if they were in the great world of ancient chaos, he definitely wouldn't say anything. But now they were alone in the great world of CND, a man and a woman traveling together, and their relationship was developing in a certain direction. Chen Hao didn't have too many misgivings, and directly said such teasing words. At the same time, Chen Hao's body flashed with a crystal light, the blood and wounds on his face and body disappeared, and he returned to his fair and chubby appearance. Obviously, the wounds that Sima Duoli left on Chen Hao contained profound Dao marks, and were of no threat to Chen Hao. What? Chen Hao's answer made Si Xian frown slightly. Papa. Chen Hao glanced at Si Xian's full breasts, and at the same time, shamelessly patted Si Xian's left arm. If Si Xian still didn't understand, she should really bang her head against the wall, but it was precisely because she understood that Si Xian's face flushed red. Si Xian, I didn't expect your acting to be so good, your emotions are on point. If we were on Earth, this year's best actress would definitely be you. Chen Hao continued. Go to hell. Si Xian was furious. As an immortal legend, who dared to tease her? But now, she was obviously being teased by this damn fatty. Why did she feel flustered? Chapter 1166. You're quite cute when you act coquettishly. Fatty, what nonsense are you talking about? Who's acting coquettishly? Si Xian, who was already a little flustered, blushed even more when she heard Chen Hao's words. Let's get down to business. What do you plan to do next? Chen Hao saw that Si Xian's face was about to bleed and stopped teasing her. He sat cross-legged on the cushion in the living room and said, Aren't we going to find your parents and Han Mei first? What other plans can I have? Si Xian was eager to change the topic. The atmosphere just now made her flustered and uncomfortable. However, I'm afraid we won't be able to find them in a short time. The great world of Xiandi is vast and boundless. Although we all came out from around the same point in the Milky Way tunnel, we've been flying in the chaotic space for more than a month. With your speed, I'm afraid you'll have to fly in the great world of Xiandi for several decades. You won't have a clue at all. That's true. I didn't expect it to take so long in the chaotic space. I can't sense the auras of my 5 clones. They should have gone to other cities or even other planets. Moreover, my parents and Master Han Mei must have changed their names and hidden themselves like us. This is undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Let's put this matter aside for the time being. Chen Hao said with a slight frown. Rumors were, after all, just rumors. After stepping into the great world of Xiandi, Chen Hao and Si Xian felt like frogs in a well looking at the sky in a short time. Everything here was much more powerful than what Yilan had described. Although the essence of things hadn't changed much, what they saw and heard after stepping into the true martial city was obviously greatly different from the great world of Xiandi in Yilan's memory. This was also expected. After all, Yilan had left the great world of Xiandi for nearly hundreds of millions of years. After such a long time, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the great world of Xiandi had changed. Then what do you plan to do? Are you going to advance in the Grand Mist domain first? Si Xian sat cross-legged across from Chen Hao and asked. Chen Hao pondered for a moment, then shook his head and said, Let's not go to the Hongmeng region for now. The heavenly Tao and spiritual qi of heaven and earth here are stronger than we imagined. I feel that there is still a lot of room for improvement. It is not the right time to enter the Hongmeng domain. It would be best for you to enter the academy first and familiarize yourself with everything here. Only then will you be able to make your next move, Chen Hao said. It shouldn't be a problem for you to enter a first-class academy. I'll make my choice after you decide where you want to go. Don't worry, I won't drag you down as long as we are in the same city, Si Xian said. Just as she entered true martial city, something like this had happened. This made Si Xian realize that a single beauty like her who maintained her primordial Yin body was like a sheep that had stepped into a pack of wolves. Even if she entered the academy, she probably wouldn't be able to remain calm. After Chen Hao entered a first-class academy, it would be much better for her to have a Dao partner like Chen Hao to act as a shield. At the very least, many people wouldn't dare to have any ideas about her. This was also what hunting head Sima Duo had told her through voice transmission. It made her completely understand with a primordial Yin body, her looks and figure were top-notch, and she hadn't severed her Tao yet. She had a lot of potential. According to Sima Duoli, he could recommend Si Xian to many important people and make her their woman. To put it bluntly, she would be a plaything in the dark. However, the cultivation of these important people could allow Si Xian to improve at an astonishing rate. This was definitely a great temptation for women who didn't have moral integrity and chastity. Although they couldn't see the light of day, it was definitely the best way to reach the heavens in a single bound. However, Si Xian wasn't that kind of person, and she didn't need that kind of shortcut. Naturally, she wouldn't agree. Since I'm already here, how can I drag you down? Let's understand the situation first. This place is very different from what Senior Yilan said. I don't necessarily have to enter a first-class academy. You mean you want to enter the same academy as me? Si Xian's eyes lit up when she heard Chen Hao's words. Did I say that? Chen Hao frowned and asked. Si Xian was slightly stunned. She immediately curled her lips and said, "Damn fatty, I knew you wouldn't be so kind. It's over." Chen Hao stared at Si Xian and said something inexplicable. What? Si Xian knew that it was definitely not something good, but she couldn't help but ask. You seem to have fallen in love with this fat body of mine. What nonsense are you talking about? Who likes a fat person like you? You're thinking too much, Si Xian said angrily. However, as she spoke, she smiled slightly. But what? Chen Hao narrowed his eyes, and his chubby face once again bloomed into a brilliant smile. My appearance is indeed cuter and more amiable, right? Si Xian was slightly stunned, and then she said, It's more wretched, more shameless, more insidious, more despicable. But I feel that this seems to be your true nature? Are you serious? This time, Chen Hao was slightly stunned, and his heart thumped as he realized something. Nature. Could it be that this is my true nature? The facts were indeed as Si Xian said. After disguising himself as a fatty and entering a new world, besides Si Xian, he who didn't have any relatives or friends by his side seemed to be like a fish in water when he appeared with his current character. It was as if he was born with this character, and it made him feel extremely comfortable from top to bottom, from inside to outside. The god of slaughter Chen Hao was cold to his enemies, loyal to his brothers, and attentive to women. Although it was his true nature, no matter how he showed it, there was always a kind of estrangement in his heart. It was only when he was alone with one of the women, and it was only occasionally, that he occasionally felt the way he did now. That was undoubtedly when he was most moved and most natural. However, it was a pity that everything that he had experienced in the ancient chaos great thousand world and the intense pace of his cultivation had been pushing him to constantly improve. Such moments were simply too rare. Perhaps it was for this reason that after stepping out of the Star River tunnel and disguising himself as a fatty, the estrangement between Chen Hao and Si Xian suddenly faded a lot. That was why he pretended to be her Taoist companion and flirted with her just now. Of course it's true. And more shameless. He dared to flirt with me. It's your father, Si Xian said, and as if her words had slipped, she mentioned Chen Hao's father again. F***CK. Chen Hao suddenly jumped up, the fat on his face trembling. He rolled up his arms and sleeves, and looked like he was going to teach Si Xian a lesson. He threatened, "Try saying that again?" Si Xian sat calmly and then burst out laughing. "What are you so excited about? Am I not telling the truth? You don't want to admit that you are younger than me. Could it be that you have been interested in me since long ago?" Chapter 1167. The fat on Chen Hao's face trembled. His chubby hand was raised in the air, but the cross-legged Si Xian was looking up at him, motionless. After several seconds, Chen Hao finally lowered his hand. He had discovered that Si Xian, or perhaps a woman's ability to adapt, was extremely powerful. Once their psychological defenses were broken through, they would quickly adapt. Just like now, Si Xian, who had just been teased by him and was blushing so red that it seemed as if blood would drip from her face, was now able to calmly checkmate him. Moreover, it seemed as if he was right? Chen Hao couldn't help but despise himself in his heart. If Xiao Feng was only a trigger, then when he first met the immortal legend of Xi Xian, he didn't seem to reject her at all. The immortal legend of the vast universe galaxy, the goddess in the hearts of countless cultivators. For a man with a strong desire to conquer her, she was indeed a great temptation. In addition to the fact that Xiao Feng was in the third life, from the very beginning, the contact between the two had revealed a certain taste. It seemed unstoppable and unavoidable, but in reality, whether Chen Hao admitted it or not, intentionally or not, his unintentional attitude towards Xi Xian had stimulated her to turn into a curious cat. This was Chen Hao's instinctive behavior. And Xi Xian's words of true nature had deeply touched Chen Hao. At the same time, an inexplicable panic surged in his heart. Just what kind of person was he? In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Within the training room of the inn, Chen Hao and Xi Xian were both sitting cross-legged with their backs facing each other. They were both immersed in their cultivation and had forgotten the passage of time. After stepping into the great world of Xiandi, this was the first time they were cultivating. Both of them could feel the strength and clarity of the heavenly Tao laws in the great world of Xiandi. They were indeed much stronger than ancient chaos, of course. The so-called strong wasn't the level of the supreme heaven Tao laws, and it was the strength of the fluctuations of the aura. If the heavenly Tao laws of the two great thousand worlds were compared to a kind of Tao mark, not to mention which of the two Tao marks was stronger, Chen Hao and Xi Xian's realms could not determine which was stronger. Just from the strength of the aura, the heavenly Tao laws of the great thousand world of ancient chaos were like Tao marks that were about to exhaust their energy. The aura that was released was very weak, but the Tao marks of the great world of Xiandi were clearly visible, and the aura was extremely strong. Even if they contained the same profound mysteries of Tao marks, there was no doubt that it would be much faster to comprehend them in the great world of Xiandi. The great world of Xiandi had gone through countless years and gathered the luck of countless top geniuses in the great thousand world. The foundation of the great world of Xiandi was undoubtedly terrifying. This also caused Chen Hao and Xi Xian to be immersed in their comprehension, so much so that they forgot to eat and sleep, and even forgot the passage of time. Ding dong! Ding dong! But they had forgotten that it did not mean that the inn would let them stay in forever. When the deposit reached a month's time limit, the runic doorbell rang in the training room. Both of them were startled awake at the same time. Damn! A month has passed? Chen Hao opened his eyes and said in surprise. Xi Xian was also not satisfied. She looked at Chen Hao and said, "We have used up all the immortal crystal coins we paid. You should have said that we would stay in a worse room, but you insisted on staying in the best 1,600 immortal crystal coins a day. In a month's time, 50,000 immortal crystal coins had been used up, and only 2,000 immortal crystal coins were left. Do you think I lack money? Staying here is just to heal my injuries. Let's go to the Alliance Assessment Center," Chen Hao said as he pulled Xi Xian's hand and walked out. Real Martial City Alliance Assessment Center. According to Yilan, newcomers who had stepped into the great world of Xiandi would be able to obtain basic information about the great world of Xiandi. At the same time, this was also the assessment center for newcomers. Chen Hao and Xi Xian asked for directions in the inn and headed directly to the Alliance Assessment Center. Even so, the two of them had to fly for 2 hours before arriving. One could see how big Real Martial City was. So many people. When the two of them arrived at the entrance of the assessment center, Xi Xian said in surprise. There were countless young cultivators. Most of them were from the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm, while a small portion were from the Daluo Golden Wonderland and the Tao Severing True Immortals. Are they all here for the assessment? Xi Xian asked through voice transmission. Is there a need to ask? The academies here are not like the sects in our world. Once you enter, you can leave and choose again at any time. Of course, the prerequisite is that you have the strength to pass the assessment of a stronger academy. Because of this, third-rate academies are third-rate academies. Even if true geniuses enter third-rate academies, they won't stay for long, and they won't be buried. Some academies naturally have to pay a price to retain their geniuses. Someone like me, I knew you wouldn't be so kind. Si Xian frowned and transmitted her voice. She had run away from home, so when she stepped into the galaxy tunnel, Yilan didn't tell her in detail about the great world of Xiandi. Up until now, basically all the information she knew was from Chun Hao. Then should I take the assessment of a first-rate academy directly? Chun Hao released Si Xian's hand. The two of them continued to walk quickly. Up to you, tell me the truth. Up to you. In any case, I won't image you. I'll just go to the same city as you when you take the assessment. At that time, wouldn't your woman hate me to death because I took a photo of you? My master will definitely scold me, Si Xian said seriously, but then her delicate body trembled. What are you doing? Don't be so agitated, we're Dao companions. Chun Hao actually put his arm around Si Xian's waist and continued walking. This kind of intimate behavior was nothing special between Dao companions. However, they were pretending to be Dao companions. Apart from Chun Hao's injury a month ago, walking hand in hand was the closest thing Si Xian and Chun Hao had done. Damn fatty, don't take advantage of me. Si Xian used one hand to grab Chun Hao's arm around her waist and walked hand in hand again. Her face was flushed red as she transmitted her voice to him. As the two of them talked, they arrived at a shop near the entrance. Just as Yilan said, the price was 100 times higher. They used 1,000 immortal crystal coins to buy a jade slip containing basic information about the great world of Xiandi. Chun Hao directly fused the jade slip into his mind. What a big change! A few minutes later, Chun Hao transmitted his voice to Si Xian with a trace of surprise on his face. Soon after, a light of memory emerged from between Chun Hao's brows and was transmitted to Si Xian. It was very different from the great world of Xiandi in Yilan's memory. Yilan had no memory of planet Hua, but it was one of the 3,000 main planets. Including the great transforming star, the original main star had countless big and small cities. Now, each main star only had 10 big cities. Chapter 1168. The tens of thousands of planets with life under the jurisdiction of the main planet were cities as a whole. There was only one first-rate academy on each main planet, and it was located in the main city of one of the 10 major cities. On planet Dahua, it was in Dahua City. The highest-level academy in True Martial City was only 100 second-rate academies, and 1,000 third-rate academies. Obviously, the great world of Xiandi was now quite standardized. Jinxing Academy is ranked 12th, Qingming Academy is ranked 98th. Si Xian looked at Chun Hao strangely and said, not to mention herself, with the aura that Chun Hao had shown at that time, it was obvious that the guard captain's enthusiastic recommendation was definitely a scam. There were a total of 100 second-rate academies in True Martial City, and Qingming Academy was ranked 98th, which was almost at the bottom. It was afraid that even the top third-rate academies could not compare. Through the information obtained through the Jade Slip, the two of them had a preliminary understanding of each academy in True Martial City. They were all second-rate academies, but there was a huge difference in the cultivation conditions and treatment they received after becoming a disciple. The higher the ranking, the better the treatment. In the same academy, cultivators of different realms would receive different treatment. The higher the realm, the better the treatment, but this was overall. For cultivators of the same realm, the stronger the combat power, the better the treatment. The best treatment in the Daluo Golden Wonderland was better than the worst treatment in the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. It was just not as good as the best treatment in the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. These treatment were the most basic. As long as one became a disciple of the Academy, they would receive it. Most of the treatment was based on the Academy's contribution point. This had nothing to do with realm or combat power, only contribution points. How is it? Now do you believe that the guard captain was a scam? Chun Hao said with a smile. You're amazing, okay? It's not that I'm amazing, it's that you're too naive. I really don't know how you've lived for tens of millions of years. It's none of your business, damn fatty. Si Xian's face was slightly red, and she grabbed Chun Hao's fat waist with one hand and pinched it hard. Okay, let's go for the assessment first. As long as you can meet the selection criteria of a second-rate academy, we will choose a stronger second-rate academy to take the assessment. Chun Hao said. Yes. The two separated their hands. Si Xian glanced at Chun Hao and turned to leave. A new world, a new beginning. She had once been a peak existence in vast universe galaxy, but here she was nothing more than a legend. Although she hadn't fallen to the bottom, she still felt a tremendous pressure. If it weren't for her following Chun Hao here, she really wouldn't know where she would go. In a world filled with endless danger and cruelty, she felt like a sheep that had entered a pack of wolves. It was completely beyond her imagination. Otherwise, he wouldn't have met someone like Sima Duoli when he first came in. Therefore, at this moment, even though they were only separated into two teams of two different realms, Si Xian still felt a little reluctant. Shaking her head, her train of thought suddenly quickened. She was a character of the ancient Chaos Grand Thousand World. When did she become so weak? Chun Hao watched as Si Xian stood behind the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's peak late-stage cultivators. He smiled at her and quickly went to Daluo Jinxian's peak late-stage cultivators. Different realms had different entrances for the assessment. Several hours later. Buzz. Buzz buzz buzz, huh? What's going on? It can't be measured? In the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's peak late-stage assessment area, the two old men in charge of the assessment were surprised to see the screen constantly fluctuating, but after a full minute, there was still a strange phenomenon of a result. This was an age test. Under normal circumstances, it only took 10 seconds to determine the specific age of a cultivator. But now, a full minute had passed, and the age of the woman was still fluctuating. The number was changing irregularly. It was the first time they had encountered such a strange situation. Bathed in endless immortal light and runes, Si Xian was extremely nervous at this moment. After waiting for several hours, it was her turn to take the test. The first test was her age, which was undoubtedly her weakness. The cultivators who took the test before her were at most 1,000,000 years old, and most of them were around 500,000 years old. But she was more than 60 million years old. She couldn't remember the exact number. Why isn't it out yet? Si Xian was already nervous and mentally prepared to be despised. But others passed the test in a few seconds and entered the next level. She had been taking the test for a full minute and still hadn't completed it. Could it be that the tester is broken? How is that possible? All the testers were condensed by true immortal kings. Have you ever heard of a broken one? But what's going on? As long as it's a life, there's no reason why the specific number can't be measured. Let's try the next one? All right. The two old men conversed. Beep. At this moment, the number on the display screen suddenly froze. What? This? It can't be right. The two old men looked at the display screen, a little dumbfounded. They were extremely shocked. 143,834 years old. How was this possible? When Si Xian came in, the two old men had a rough estimation. This woman was definitely much older than them. She was at least 50 million years old. But the result of the test turned out to be more than 140,000 years old. She was much younger than the peak late-stage supreme being of Hongmeng. There must be a problem. Let's try the next one. The two old men couldn't believe this result. They directly asked Xian to temporarily push the test out and change it to the next tester. The result came out in 3 seconds, but the result was similar to what they had sensed. There was no problem. Then, they tested a few more testers and they all met the requirement. After letting Xian enter the test again, it lasted for a full minute. Then, the display screen froze again. Finally, it stopped at 143,834 years old. Chen Si, right? What's your approximate age? The 2 testers called Xian in front of them and asked curiously. After verification, there was no problem with the tester. The problem could only be with Xian. About 50 million years old. Xian didn't see the result of her test and said nervously, "Have you swallowed some heaven-defying heaven and earth spirit object that can prolong your lifespan? The results of our test here show that you are only 140,000 years old." Ah! Xian was shocked. Almost instantly, she thought of the 9 lives mystic technique. Her third life, Xiaofeng, was only 140,000 years old. But Xian knew that this couldn't be exposed no matter what. The 9 lives mystic technique of the Xiao clan's patriarch must have come from the great world of Xiandi. Moreover, it had a great relationship with Master. The reason why the great world of Xiandi became the forbidden land of ancient chaos cultivators was also related to Master. In a short moment, Xian regained her composure and said, "I received an inheritance and swallowed some strange fruits. It should be related to lifespan." As expected. No wonder your appearance doesn't show any signs of aging. The essence of your lifespan has been changed. This can be considered your talent. Let's calculate your age according to 140,000 years. Congratulations. Continue to test other items. After hearing Xian's words, one of the old men didn't doubt her and said directly, "Beep." With a crisp sound, Xian's identity token was removed. Xian didn't dare to believe that this was real. 40,000. If her age was only 40,000, then how much would her test potential value increase? Don't worry. This is your secret, we shouldn't ask too much. It's just that your situation is too special, we will keep it a secret from you. Moreover, the final potential value result won't show the specific situation, only the final potential value. Thank you. Xian held the token and felt as if she was dreaming. She walked out of the 2 old men's monitoring room and entered the next test. She, who was the legend of not aging, actually became an extremely young existence in the same realm. Was this a joke? Until the end of the test, when she saw her name high up and the extremely eye-catching potential value, Xian was sure that she had hit the jackpot. Her age was calculated according to the third life of the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Xian knew that her potential value was definitely unable to reflect her true situation. Very weak, because her third life was only the Daluo Golden Wonderland. But Xian naturally wouldn't say anything. F***ck. This little fatty is too awesome, right? I really couldn't tell. He actually has the qualifications to take the test of a first-rate academy, too awesome. Just based on this potential value, in our true martial city, he can definitely choose any academy without taking the test. Yeah. I really didn't expect that just based on his aura, I wouldn't be able to sense it. While Xian was being stared at in shock by countless test-takers, in the Daluo Golden Wonderland test area, Chen Hao had a humble smile on his face. He was also receiving the admiration of many young cultivators. Brother Li Yuan, hello. Can we get to know each other? Little girl, do you want to dual cultivate? I don't have any problems. The fee is very cheap, 10,000 immortal origin crystals per session. What are you talking about? Annoying. A female cultivator who wanted to befriend the genius fatty directly blushed after hearing Chen Hao's shameless words. She turned around and left. F***ck, what a shameless fatty. Many cultivators were speechless when they saw this scene. Not to mention that the girl who approached him had an original body. Even if she didn't, if he wanted to charge a fee, he should have said it secretly. He actually dared to say it in front of so many people. He was really too shameless. Is it really only 10,000? However, what no one knew was that after Chen Hao purposely made the girl leave, several female voices suddenly sounded in his mind. F***ck, the fatty finally realized that in this cruel the great world of Xiandi, there were too many people who were shameless, immoral, and unscrupulous for the sake of cultivation. F***ck, I'm still a big fatty now. If I were to change into my handsome and elegant self, what would happen? Of course, those who dared to send him voice transmissions were naturally fierce women who had lost their original bodies. Chen Hao immediately covered his head and fled. The people of the Celestial Emperor were too enthusiastic, and he couldn't take it. Chapter 1169. Chen Hao covered his head and scurried away. Just as he rushed out of the entrance of the testing center, more than 20 true immortal Severing Dao elders mixed in with the crowd chased after him. No way? I've already suppressed them enough. With his powerful soul perception and the fact that the other party didn't hide their auras, how could Chen Hao not sense the probing and tracking of their divine senses? However, the astute Chen Hao didn't even need to think to know that these old men should be the recruitment staff of the various second-rate academies. When Chen Hao started the test, he had planned to get a potential value that wasn't too eye-catching, but still had to have a good potential value. If Xi Xian's potential value was too low, he could use his advantage to request that his Dao companion, Xi Xian, enter a second-rate academy together with him when he joined. However, Chen Hao didn't know the comprehensive calculation method of potential value, so he almost didn't reach the standard of a first-rate academy. In true Martial City, this was a little too eye-catching. Fine, I wanted to keep a low profile, but since it's already like this, I'll try my best to negotiate. It'll be a waste if I don't. Thinking of this, Chen Hao stopped. More than 20 elders immediately came to Chen Hao's side. Seniors, what are you all doing? The fat on Chen Hao's face trembled. He seemed to be very surprised as he looked at the 20 or so old men who had surrounded him in an instant. Chen Hao noticed that although the 20 elders were looking at him, they also seemed to be looking at each other with provocative gazes. It was obvious that they were disdainful of the other party. Not far away, many elders shook their heads and didn't join the camp. Since you're all interested, let's compete fairly. As usual, we'll set the conditions in one go and let little brother Li Yuan choose. Do you have any objections? Just what I want. I have no objections. Chen Hao saw that the elders were talking among themselves and didn't answer him, so he frowned and asked, Wait, seniors, are you teachers of the various academies? That's right. The Old Man Academy is ranked 4th among the second-rate academies in the true Martial City, and is in no way inferior to the true Martial Academy's Clear Wind Academy. Haha, that's right. There isn't much of a difference between the top 30 or even the top 50 academies. The rankings are only for reference. Moreover, it's the rankings from last year. This year's rankings aren't certain. Old Man's Qian Wu Academy is currently ranked 9th. Another old man said proudly. There's no point in talking about this. Everyone, just state your conditions. Little brother Li Yuan, Old Man will explain to you that we will tell you our conditions in the form of a jade slip. After you read it, it is best for you to make a decision now. The 23 of us present here represent 23 academies. Moreover, we are all relatively strong second-rate academies in true Martial City. You can refer to the ranking information. The main thing to consider is the conditions that we offer. This is very important to you. The top 3 academies won't come here for special recruitment. Even if you enter their academies, you won't be able to get what we offer. You have to believe me. Hello, Miss Chen. I'm sorry. Please make way. Miss Chen. My Dao companion is waiting for me. Please make way. Si Xian's life aura was very old. Originally, with her primordial Yin body and youthful appearance, many cultivators were tempted. Now that her potential value was almost enough to enter a first-rate academy, there was no doubt that her combat strength, comprehension, soul force, physical body, mental state, and willpower were all at a terrifying level. If she was younger and didn't drag others down, she would definitely meet the requirements of a first-rate academy. How could some cultivators not be tempted? Si Xian's face turned green. She did not expect that when her potential value was revealed, she would be surrounded by young cultivators while she was in a daze. Their enthusiasm was exaggerated. Si Xian had no choice but to activate her majestic protective aura and force her way out. So it's like this. However, I can't make the decision. Let's wait for my Dao companion to come out. I'll enter whichever academy she chooses, Chen Hao said without hesitation after hearing the old man's words. Fatty. At this moment, Si Xian locked onto Chen Hao's aura and rushed over like a bolt of lightning. Cici. Chen Hao's fat face suddenly revealed a bright smile. However, when he saw more than 20 old men chasing after Si Xian, he immediately revealed a surprised expression. At the same time, the old man following Chen Hao and the old man chasing after Si Xian were also surprised. The more than 20 old men on Chen Hao's side immediately exchanged glances with the more than 20 old men behind Si Xian. Moreover, there were exactly 23 people, no more and no less. Almost at the same time, one by one, they stared at each other. The people on Chen Hao's side immediately thought that the other party had come to snatch the little fatty from him. Obviously, they had received news about the little fatty's potential value. Although they were also surprised by Si Xian's appearance, they didn't think that those old men from the same academy as them were chasing after Si Xian. As for the old man chasing after Si Xian, he couldn't sense how strong the little fatty was. He thought that these 23 people had received news about Si Xian's potential value and intercepted her. What are you doing here? We're each in charge of our own areas. There's no need for this, right? What are you talking about? She's one of your people just because she's in your area? Two of them spoke up directly. What's going on? Chen Hao couldn't react in time. He pulled Si Xian, who had an ugly expression, and asked telepathically. I don't know either. They followed us as soon as we left. At this moment, Chen Hao transmitted his voice to Si Xian when he heard the two old men's tit-for-tat conversation. F***ck, it looks like they're all here for me. It's an internal conflict. Si Xian was slightly taken aback. Just as she was about to say something, Chen Hao said directly, Seniors, this is my Dao companion. I'll go to whichever academy she chooses. This is our only condition. You can name it as you wish. Both sides frowned and then said in unison, If there are two of you, the conditions we name will have a great impact. Moreover, the treatment you'll receive will definitely be different. Ahem, seniors, we're Dao companions. Although our realms are different, my condition is that we'll receive the same treatment in our respective realms. I'll leave it to you. Chen Hao said without hesitation. Isn't this little fatty a little too nice to his Dao companion? The old men on Chen Hao's side thought to themselves. F***ck, this little fatty is too shameless, isn't he? Chen Si should be the one to say that. The old man beside Si Xian looked at Chen Hao with disdain and frowned. Well, my Dao companion is just a little older. She's very strong in all other aspects. Chen Hao added in order to fight for more benefit. She's just a little older. F***ck, she's probably tens of millions of years older than us. Nonsense, do I need you to say that? This fatty is really shameless. When the two sides heard Chen Hao's words, they cursed in their hearts again. Fatty. Right at this moment, Si Xian knew that she had to say something. She pulled Chen Hao's hand and called out. She didn't transmit her voice. Well, my potential value, it's fine. We're Tao companions. We'll advance and retreat together. It's not my potential value, I already said. Chen Hao waved his hand and wanted to talk to Si Xian again. But this time, Si Xian directly interrupted Chen Hao and said, My potential value is close to a first-rate academy. I'm only 10 points away. Chen Hao cried out in surprise. At the same time, the old men on Chen Hao's side also had a great change in expression. You're chasing her? Not for the little fatty? Little fatty? Although the little fatty's age and aura aren't bad, as for making us, you're doing it for the little fatty? Until now, both sides were angry at the other side for spearing people. Both sides, who had serious communication problems, were stunned. Similarly stunned was the fatty who stared at Si Xian with a puzzled expression. No matter how Chen Hao thought about it, he couldn't understand how Si Xian's potential value could be close to participating in a first-rate academy's exam. How could he not be clear about Si Xian's situation? Because the effect of age on potential value was at best close to the bottom line of a second-rate academy. Don't look at me like that, it's the truth. Si Xian's face was crimson red. She could ignore many old men, who were younger than her, but she couldn't stand the fatty's radiant gaze and the focus on her from head to toe. Brother knows you're better than me. You're indeed better than me. What nonsense, what nonsense. Can the test value be fake? Brother is 11 points away. Haha. Chen Hao deliberately said in an extra pleased tone. Although he didn't know what was going on, there must be something hidden. As for what it was, of course, it wasn't a matter to pursue at this time. The higher Si Xian's score was, the better the conditions they could obtain. Only an idiot would ask for the reason. It would be an idiot if he didn't exaggerate. Seniors, you've also seen it. This is the reason why I want to listen to my Tao companion. Sure enough, there's no exception. Every time, she's a little bit stronger than me. You can state your conditions. As you wish, as you wish. The fatty's face once again turned into a blooming chrysanthemum. However, when the dozens of old men heard his tone and saw his expression, they all frowned and stared at Chen Hao. This was obviously King extortion expression. Wait a moment! After understanding the situation, the two groups instantly lost their hostility. Furthermore, the two old men from the respective schools also looked at each other. Obviously, the competition between the two schools was also very intense. Now, the schools naturally had to plan together and state their conditions to target the two of them. This way, they would have a higher chance of obtaining two top-notch second-rate geniuses. F*CK, a fatty, and he's even Daluo Golden Wonderland. Chen Xi's Tao companion is so weak. How can she compare to me? What a beautiful woman. She's so old. Primordial in body? This little fatty. Looks like he's not a casual person. But it doesn't matter. There's no cat that doesn't steal fish. Let's see which school she chooses. I'll decide which one to take. Black Mountain Mathematics was taught by a language teacher. Sorry. There was an extra 10 in the previous chapter's serial number. Today's chapter will be changed. This is the last day of the month. If you have a monthly ticket, please support Black Mountain. Chapter 1170. While Chen Hao and Si Xian were surrounded by 46 elders, two people from each academy were secretly discussing what kind of conditions they could offer to win over the two geniuses, Chen Hao and Si Xian. Of course, there were also those who were interested in Chen Hao or Si Xian, who had come out of the two testing centers. Of course, those who chased after Chen Hao were basically women who had been attracted by the fatties, 10,000 per session, offer. And those who chased after Si Xian were naturally men who wanted to pursue Si Xian, and naturally, they couldn't be too bad of a man. If they didn't have some skills, they wouldn't be able to catch up. Talent is really enviable. Being targeted by so many elders from second-rate academies, there's definitely no need for the selection test, and they can even get extremely good treatment. It's just that these two don't look like they have high potential. When the surrounding cultivators saw such a lineup, they naturally knew what those elders wanted to do. But no matter how they looked at it, Chen Hao and Si Xian didn't look like geniuses, especially Si Xian. Just her life aura alone should be enough to deny everything. Si Xian, looks like you're very popular. There are so many handsome guys with decent talent. Are you moved? When more and more people gathered around and many burning gazes fell on Si Xian, Chen Hao held Si Xian's hand and transmitted his voice. Go to hell. Si Xian was instantly angry. The people in this world are really... You're already like this, and there are so many of them. Are you very excited? Do I look like that kind of person? 10,000 is simply a dream. What 10,000? Someone offered 10,000 immortal crystal coins to dual cultivate with me once. Chen Hao said shamelessly. Si Xian stared speechlessly. Who do you think I am? 10,000. What about 100,000? Si Xian didn't know that Chen Hao, this shameless guy, was deliberately tempting her. The feeling he gave her was that this guy completely thought the money was too little, not that he couldn't do it. Therefore, Si Xian looked at Chen Hao in disdain and directly increased the price to interrogate him. 100,000? I'm not a casual person. The fatty was disdainful. 1 million. 1 million. I can be yours tonight. You humph, I knew you weren't a good person. Si Xian said disdainfully, her face flushed red. She naturally knew that Chen Hao was joking. Go on, Cici, it's not over yet. What's not over? 10 million? 10 million? You can treat me as if I'm not human. How disgusting. 100 million, no matter how many of you come. I don't care if you're a human or not. Pooh! The two of them were talking through voice transmission, but at this time, Si Xian directly burst out laughing. Her face was red with embarrassment, and she hurriedly covered her mouth with one hand. She held Chen Hao's hand and pinched it hard. This damn fatty was too shameless and disgusting. Why aren't they doing well? It's too slow. Hurry them up. After a full 10 minutes, more and more cultivators gathered around them. Moreover, they were all discussing Chen Hao and Si Xian. Si Xian couldn't help but send a voice transmission to Chen Hao. Use your brain a little. Why are you rushing them? This is a matter of mutual benefit. The longer it takes, the better it is for us. Why? Didn't you hear the discussion around us? Groups of people who want to steal from us. Whichever school we choose, there will be many people who will choose to join us. How can these old fellows not know? I'm afraid this is the reason why they stopped us here and talked in front of everyone. Chen Hao didn't need to think and said directly. I see. Si Xian said in realization. Sigh, I didn't believe it when they said that women with big breasts have no brains. Go to hell. Si Xian was once again embarrassed by Chen Hao, and she was extremely angry. However, Si Xian didn't know that she, who had lived for tens of millions of years, had completely turned into a coquettish young girl when she was with Chen Hao. She might not have fallen into the river of love, but she was at least halfway there. It was just that she didn't feel it. It's about time, right? Finally, after a full half an hour, an old man spoke first. All right, let's begin then. The other old men didn't object and agreed one after another. Chi. Soon after, the two old men formed 2 jade slips at the same time and offered them to Chen Hao and Si Xian respectively. Our jade slips are made in duplicate, and the contents are the same for both of you. After you've read it, make your choice and sign the contract. This is also the rule of fair competition. Do you have any problems? The old man who spoke first spoke again. No problem. I hate people who go back on their words the most. using a knife to the left and a sword to the right to obtain the greatest benefit. That kind of immoral thing is very boring. Seniors, please don't worry. However, I hope you don't mind which one we choose. We'll choose whichever one offers the most suitable conditions for us. Even if we can't do business, we can still be friends. Well said. Little Fatty isn't simple. The dozens of old men either praised him or secretly praised him in their hearts. Chen Hao and Si Xian looked at each other and began to read the information in the jade slips at the same time. After 3 minutes, the two of them finished reading and both of them frowned in contemplation. Soon after, the two of them began to communicate via voice transmission, discussing which one to choose. At this time, the 46 old men were staring at the two of them without blinking. Their eyes were filled with strong anticipation, and their expressions were also a little nervous. A pair of Taoist companions, and a pair of Taoist companions who had the potential value of a first-rate academy without going through dual cultivation, was definitely very important to a second-rate academy. Moreover, they were certain that Chen Hao and Si Xian were definitely newcomers who had just entered the great world of Xiandi. Otherwise, the two of them definitely wouldn't have stayed in true Martial City and would have gone to Dehua City long ago to challenge a first-rate academy. 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 years for life, which one do we choose? Si Xian asked via voice transmission. The conditions offered by the 23 academies all had a time limit. The shortest was 1,000 years, followed by 1,000 years for life. The longer the contract was signed, the higher the level of treatment received. This was obviously arranged according to the academy ranking tournament that occurred once every 1,000 years. Chen Hao and Si Xian had a choice. Within the time limit set by the contract, the two of them couldn't leave the academy. First, tell me, what's up with your potential value? The age measured is the age of my third anima. No way. Chen Hao said in surprise. If that's the case, then why is my age the same as my original body's? Chen Hao's seventh anima was born before coming to the great world of Xiandi. Right now, he was still a little brat. How would I know? I was tested twice, and both times I was at the age of my third anima. The tester asked me if I had swallowed any spiritual objects of heaven and earth, and I said yes. However, it should be because your 9 lives profound technique is different from mine. I fused with it, but I couldn't separate it as thoroughly as you. Chapter 1171. But you haven't fused with it yet, Chen Hao said with a frown. I haven't truly fused with it yet. Because of what happened in the foreign battlefield, the third anima connected with me, except for my memories. No, I don't think that's the reason. Their age-measuring device's calculation should be based on one's realm and current vitality. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Let's choose 1,000 years. It's meaningless to wait too long for a second-rate academy. Which academy should we choose? Chen Hao said. Up to you. I don't care. Then Jinxing Academy? Jinxing. Damn Fatty, you can't be thinking about that pretty sister of yours, right? Si Xian said after a slight pause. F***CK, can't you be a little healthier? Fan Ling and Zhou Yuchen are both pretty good. They have an aura of righteousness and are worth making friends with, especially for you. What does that have to do with me? Si Xian said with a glare. Chen Hao choked on his words. One more friend meant one more path. Especially for people like Chen Hao and Si Xian, who had just stepped into a foreign world. How could they isolate themselves if they wanted to integrate into this world? Relationships, and making friends were undoubtedly the best ways. Otherwise, they would always be isolated in their hearts and would never be able to truly integrate into this world. Chen Hao chose Jinxing Academy for 2 reasons. First, the conditions offered by Jinxing Academy weren't worse than any of the others. Combined with its ranking, it was the best one. Second, they had met once and could be considered friends. After all, Fan Zhen and Zhou Yuchen were acquaintances. This was a good thing for him and Si Xian. Especially for Si Xian. After all, Chen Hao was just a Daluo Jinxian. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before he stepped into the Hongmeng domain. If you think Jinxing Academy is suitable, then so be it. I have no objections. Why do you have such an expression? Si Xian continued. Let's talk about it later, Chen Hao said. After he finished speaking, a troubled expression appeared on his chubby face. He looked at the surrounding elders who were filled with anticipation and nervousness. Seniors, thank you very much for your favor. This junior wishes that he could split it into 23 and agree to all of you. It's really hard to choose. The conditions that you all have offered and the rankings that you all have are all things that this junior cannot refuse. Little brother Li Yuan, just tell us the result. It's a fair competition. No matter which one you choose, no one will blame you. Alright. The academy that we've chosen has offered similar conditions to everyone else. Our ranking is only in the middle among all of you. After hearing Chen Hao said, only a few of the 23 academies, those ranked at the front ans. Our choice is... Little fatty, wait. Just as Chen Hao was about to announce the result, the void suddenly shook, and a space-time gate appeared. A figure with a terrifying aura stepped out of the gate and shouted at Chen Hao from afar. Celestial light lingered in the air, and endless pressure poured down. At this moment, everyone looked at the void in shock. Although the pressure was not targeted at anyone, the cultivators present, including the 46 powerful true immortals of the cutting path, all had a slight change in expression. Their expressions were dull. The young and old participants, as well as the onlookers, were all stunned. What's going on? He's so powerful. He's at least a Dao-severing perfected immortal. Dahua Academy. Finally, when the celestial light dissipated from the newcomer's body, someone recognized the insignia on the newcomer's chest. It was Dahua Academy. The only first-class academy on Dahua planet was located in Dahua City. At this moment, everyone stared blankly. Everyone had heard the newcomer's voice when he stopped Little Fatty. However, how did Chen Hao and Si Xian attract the experts of Dahua Academy? Although their potential was already the best in True Martial City, and the second-class academies in True Martial City were fighting over them, they were only the best of the second-class academies. They were still a little short of meeting the most basic assessment requirements of a first-class academy. No matter how one looked at it, the two of them should not have attracted the attention of Dahua Academy. Chen Hao and Si Xian, who had regained their senses, were also puzzled. Fellow cultivators, I'm Tan Lin Hai of Dahua Academy's True Martial Pavilion. Our pavilion master is also interested in Li Yuan and Chen Si. The cultivator with a terrifying aura directly stated his purpose. The cultivators present were in an uproar. The 46 elders from the second-class academies were also a little dumbfounded. What was going on? Under normal circumstances, the Big Talk academies would never compete with the second-rate academies for students. However, those who were talented and had confidence in themselves did not need to be recruited by the Big Talk academies. They would participate in the examination of the Big Talk academies on their own. Unless the cultivator's talent was so great that even the first-class academies of other planets were tempted, they would take the initiative to recruit them. However, in that case, their potential value was undoubtedly at a terrifying level. Little Fatty and Si Xian's potential value was not even enough to qualify for the first-class academy's assessment. Since Dahua Academy has taken a liking to them, we'll forget about it. Li Yuan, Chen Si, congratulations. The elders in the front and back of the academy said directly. In any case, although Chen Hao did not announce the results, he had already told them that the academy he had chosen was one of the middle-ranked academies among them. Teacher Tan, can you tell us what's going on? Li Yuan and Chen Xi's potential value is not enough to qualify for the first-class academy's assessment. Someone asked. Sorry, our pavilion master just happened to be at the Dahua Planet Alliance's assessment headquarters and saw their assessment information. I'm also very curious about the specific reason. However, whether or not they can be specially recruited into Dahua Academy requires our pavilion master to meet them personally before he can make a decision, Tan Linhai said, then looked at Chen Hao and Si Xian. Are the two of you willing to come with me? Yes, of course. To be able to enter a first-class academy. It's a dream. Chen Hao seemed to be very excited and said, but his heart was completely different. Exceeding expectations meant that they were out of control. Why would a first-class academy take a liking to them whose potential value was only at the top of the second-class academies? Why would their assessment information attract the attention of the pavilion master of Dahua Academy's true martial pavilion? What was it that attracted his attention? What did he discover? Chen Hao and Si Xian could not help but worry about these. However, at this moment, the two of them could not reject the olive branch thrown by a first-class academy. Otherwise, it would be too strange. First update: begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1172. With the emergence of the University of Dahua, the 23 second-rate academies that were fighting over Chen Hao and Si Xian were left with no choice. As the name suggested, the true martial pavilion of the University of Dahua was responsible for the true martial city, one of the top 10 cities on Dahua. If the cultivators from the 100 second-rate academies and 1,000 third-rate academies in the true martial city met the requirements of the first-rate academies, they would choose the University of Dahua. Once they were accepted, they would become disciples of the true martial pavilion of the University of Dahua. Unlucky! What a waste of time! The University of Dahua's hands are getting bigger and bigger. After Chen Hao and Si Xian were taken away by Tan Linhai through the space-time gate, the elders of the 23 academies were all gloomy. Some of the cultivators who had designs on Chen Hao and Si Xian, at this time, other than sighing with envy and jealousy, they did not have any other thoughts. To be chosen by the pavilion master of the true martial pavilion of the University of Dahua, and to specially send people to take Chen Hao and Si Xian away, it was almost certain that the two of them were very lucky to be specially recruited without having to take the exam. In less than a day, the news that Chen Hao and Si Xian, this special couple, were taken away by a teacher from the University of Dahua spread throughout the true martial city. F***ck. Headhunter Sima Duoli, who had lost face after being defeated by Chen Hao, was both surprised and depressed when he heard the news. It was basically impossible for him to get back his face. When Fan Ling and Zhou Yuchen heard the news, they were also extremely shocked. Although Zhou Yuchen had seen from the beginning that the two of them were not simple, she did not expect their potential value to be close to the level of being qualified to take the test of a first-rate academy. What was more surprising was that they were chosen by the University of Dahua. This meant that the little fatty and his couple had hidden abilities. Otherwise, the University of Dahua would not have taken the initiative to recruit them. Little fatty, how long have you been in the peak late stage of the Daluo Golden Wonderland? Senior, less than 2,000 years. Just call me Teacher Tan. Don't be so formal. I was just brushing them off. When the pavilion master received my recommendation and saw your test information, he had already approved the recruitment of the two of you into the true martial pavilion. Don't be surprised. I only heard about you through my old friend Du Minghui. Du Minghui? Chen Hao and Si Xian both frowned, feeling even more puzzled. Who was Du Minghui? They didn't know him at all. In the great world of Xiandi, there was no one he knew like you. Du Minghui was born in the chaotic, boundless world. A month ago, he was the one who presided over the bet between you and a cultivator. He recommended it to me after he saw the extent of your comprehension of the heavenly wasteland scripture and the great teleportation technique. So that's how it is. I knew it. However, Teacher Tan, my Tao companion and I haven't even reached the lowest standard for the assessment of a first-rate academy. It's not there yet, but it's close. Moreover, you have just stepped into the great world of CND. No matter where you came from, after you arrived at the great world of CND, you will advance by leaps and bounds in the beginning. In fact, the two of you only need to cultivate for about 100 years, and you will easily reach the bottom line for the assessment of a first-rate academy. This is one of the reasons. Secondly, the Pavilion Master admires you very much for being able to comprehend the great teleportation technique to the ultimate level of your own realm. Furthermore, you have not stepped into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, but you have already integrated the mysteries of space and time. This is very rare. Just based on these 2 points, you are qualified to enter the Big Word Academy. As for Chen Si, you are unexpected. Tan Linhai looked at Si Xian and said, I didn't expect your potential value to be so high. After all, your life aura will greatly reduce your potential value. However, I didn't expect that even so, you have reached the bottom line of a first-rate academy. According to the Pavilion Master's judgment, it's not that you are strong in other aspects, but that your age test value did not affect your potential value. Am I right? Yes. As for the specific reason, we won't ask too much. The Pavilion Master has taken a fancy to little Fatty, and you two are Tao companions. Moreover, your potential value will reach the standard very soon. Therefore, the Pavilion Master has decided to specially recruit the two of you together. Tan Linhai communicated with Chun Hao and Si Xian as they shuttled quickly through the chaotic space. When he came, he had borrowed the Pavilion Master's space-time gate. When he returned, he could only rely on himself to fly. Although the Great Transformation City and the True Martial City were both on the Great Transformation Planet, the Great Transformation Planet was simply too huge. Even Tan Linhai, a sixth heaven true immortal severing Tao expert, had to fly for several hours in the chaotic space while carrying Chen Hao and Si Xian. The conversation along the way made Chen Hao and Si Xian feel slightly uneasy. They were afraid that the other party would see through some clues, but they were also relieved. It could be said that they were really lucky. Being able to enter a first-rate academy was undoubtedly a good thing for Chen Hao and Si Xian. Previously, the most important reason why Chen Hao deliberately kept a low profile was because of Si Xian. Si Xian said that she did not want to be a burden to Chen Hao, but how could Chen Hao not care about her? According to Chen Hao's judgment, Si Xian's potential value barely met the requirements to enter a second-rate academy. However, Si Xian was surprised that she was close to the bottom line of the first-rate academy's assessment. During the battle with Sima Duoli, the leader of the law enforcement officers, Du Minghui, happened to be from the chaotic vast thousand world. As Chen Hao had displayed the heavenly wasteland scripture, he was regarded as a fellow countryman. Du Minghui recommended Chen Hao to his old friend Tan Linhai because of the profound realm of the heavenly wasteland scripture that Chen Hao had displayed. In the end, Chen Hao and Si Xian were directly qualified to enter a first-rate academy. There was no doubt that Chen Hao and Si Xian were almost done in one step. After several hours, Tan Linhai broke through the space barrier and appeared in the space of the Great Transformation Planet with Chen Hao and Si Xian. This is the Great Transformation City. The first city of the Great Transformation Planet, the area of which is equivalent to 10,000 large planet. It is also the strongest and largest city of the Great Transformation Planet. The Great Transformation Planet is the place where the chi of heaven and earth converges. It is much stronger than the real martial arts city and the other 9 cities. The 9 cities are also distributed in 9 directions of the Great Transformation City. What a strong aura! Chen Hao's fat face revealed an excited expression. Si Xian also opened her eyes wide and looked down. Of course. We are now at the center of the entire Great Transformation City. Look, the tallest palace below us is the Great Transformation College. Ah? A palace? Before you came to the great world of CND, didn't your elders introduce you to it? Tan Linhai was surprised when he saw Chen Hao and Si Xian's surprised expressions. Ahem. Teacher Tan, to be honest, Si Xian and I acted first and reported later. We left a message envelope. Besides the information that we bought at the entrance of the testing center, we basically know nothing. Chen Hao scratched his head and said a little awkwardly. Si Xian's face flushed red when she heard Chen Hao's words. However, it was true that she and Chen Hao had a limited understanding of the great world of CND. Yilan's knowledge of the great world of CND was too old. The great world of CND today had undergone earth-shattering changes. The information that Chen Hao and Si Xian obtained at the entrance of the testing center could not be so detailed as to cover the problems that everyone knew. Eloped. Tan Linhai glanced at the two of them and understood what was going on. The terrifying age gap between the two of them must have been obstructed by their families. 50 million years ago, the great world of CND was divided into 3,000 main planets, which were formed by the fusion of countless planets. The cultivators on each planet gathered into 10 major cities. The huge number of cultivators also allowed each palace to have a strong spatial law. It could be said that each palace in the entire city was a different world. Moreover, the more powerful it was, the smaller it looked from the outside world. Alright, I'll send you to the testing square of the University of Dahua first. Testing square? Teacher Tan, do we still have to take the test? Of course. Although you're specially recruited, you still have to take the test. This is related to your treatment. The University of Dahua is the only first-class school in the Great Transforming Planet. The test will begin after the number of people taking the test reaches 10,000. Under normal circumstances, different realms would have to wait for at most 10 years. During this time, you can only wait at the testing square. Don't worry, it won't be boring. The Pavilion Master has approved your special recruitment. No matter what your ranking is, you won't be eliminated. However, if you want to receive better treatment, it will depend on your true abilities, Tan Linhai said with a smile. A few minutes later, Chen Hao and Si Xian were sent to the testing squares of their respective realms by Tan Linhai. What a powerful aura! After Si Xian stepped into the testing square of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm alone, she was shocked by the powerful auras. 1834th place. The moment Si Xian appeared, the cultivators sitting cross-legged in the square all looked over with probing gazes and divine consciousness. Si Xian entered at 1834th place. Obviously, it would take some time for her to reach 10,000. No one stood up, but there was no doubt that Si Xian's appearance, life aura, and strength had attracted everyone's astonishment. She's so old, but her potential value has reached the test standard. Doesn't that mean her physical body, soul, comprehension, state of mind, and so on are very strong? Strange, her aura seems a little weak. She's probably hiding it. This girl shouldn't be weak. Unlike when she appeared in the true martial city, since Si Xian could enter this square now, she must have met the requirements for her potential value or was specially recruited. However, no matter what, she couldn't be too bad. Otherwise, she wouldn't have qualified to enter. Si Xian's age and aura made the cultivators conclude that she must be very strong in other aspects. She's indeed much stronger. The moment Chen Hao appeared in the Daluo Golden Wonderland Square, he was as shocked as Si Xian. In the face of unscrupulous gazes, Chen Hao piled up a harmless smile on his face. After cupping his fists in all directions, he sat down cross-legged and spread out his powerful soul perception. This is a first-rate academy. How strong would a top-tier academy be? In a moment, Chern Hao caught several auras that really surprised him. Judging from these auras, Chern Hao could be sure that with the current strength of his original body, even if he went all out, there was not much hope for him to take them down. Unless the 5 clones returned. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.